All right, it is 6:30 on Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Here at the Star City Council Chambers. We're here for a City Council special meeting, Code Amendment Updates Workshop. Can you all please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance? And Councilman Wheelock is actually going to do our invocation tonight.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to gather here as a city council to discuss those things that we are looking to manage in our city as a city council. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to live in this community for the residents that are here. And as we work through the decisions and challenges that the city is looking at, please bless us that we'll be able to be wise in our decisions and make decisions that will benefit the residents of Star. We're grateful for this opportunity to be here and acknowledge thy hand in all things and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Day.
Here.
Here.
Salmonson. Here. Nielsen.
Present. All right, we are all here, present and accounted for. So tonight we're going to talk about our code amendments. I know we have like our comprehensive plan, South River, and architectural overlay, but tonight's about our code amendments on this discussion. And we have Sean's going to start us out with some code amendments. Then we have Ryan Morgan, I think, wants some to bring up. Victor has some. Kevin Pitt, I believe you have some. Jennifer has some, and Kevin Nielsen has some. So then that's the order we will go in. I don't think we have any others at this time. Correct? Right. Okay. All right. Sean, floor is yours.
Start off with the UDC. I don't have a whole lot. I'm going to go through the highlighted additions that I have. You can stop me anytime. We can talk about them, but it's going to be pretty minor. Halfway through here, Victor will jump in on his portion. So Title 8 is
just real quick though, when we're talking, he's going to just talk about the major stuff, punctuation stuff and things like that. He's not going to bring that.
It's a lot of just formatting and things like that. Right. We're not going to get into right now, yeah. But and then if you guys have anything else you want to bring up other than what you've already given me, please please do so. So Title 8 is the Unified Development Code. And we are, can you see on your tablets what I have on the screen? Okay, good. Okay, so first one, in section 8.3A1, the zoning districts, I've added a sentence to the central business district. This is a proposal of mine. And it states, drive-through restaurants and other land uses that are incompatible to the existing commercial and residential uses are to be discouraged in the central downtown area and will be further defined in the future downtown revitalization plan for the area. So what I think I have it defined, the area defined further in the code, but basically what it is it's from Taurus on State Street down to Center, and then south on Main Street, south on Star Road. I think we need to discourage drive-through restaurants, focus those more out on the outskirts towards the larger commercial developments that we have over Moyle and Highbrook and things like that. So this is a proposal. We will obviously further define this in our downtown revitalization plan that we're trying to get. When are we going to have that back to council? In March? March. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I believe March 17th is the goal.
Now, if that plan ultimately decides that that's not the direction you want to go, we can always take this back out. But I just think that we need kind of protect this area down here right now. And not just the drive-throughs, but also the incompatible uses, because as you guys remember when we did the modification of the development agreement for the Red Barn Inn, and I came with to you the first time, we just kind of had a blanket allowance of uses, and you guys said, well, let's not just have a blank check for them. And so that's what this really focuses on, is we want to make sure that we're not putting incompatible uses next to some of those existing residential uses on Main Street. Okay.
Mayor? Sorry to stop you on the very first one.
All right.
How do you define incompatible uses?
That's a good question. You'll know it when you see it. How's that? I mean, incompatible is, that's really, yeah.
Well, are we?
I mean, it's good. It's a good question.
That's why I'm
but-
asking, because if we're going to put this in the code, if it's just up to the discretion of the council, that's, probably fine, but we probably ought to, say that. Or if it's to Councilman Nielsen's point, it's to the, it's up to the zoning administrator. to
I
make
mean,
that
it could be incompatible as determined by the administrator. And if someone disagrees with that, they can appeal that to the council.
Yeah, I think as we talked before, I think we'd like the code to be predictable.
Yeah.
And so for an applicant to come in and say, well, this is what I want to do, and we just say, well, sorry, that's incompatible.
Right.
And there's not really a standard. So we want to think through that.
Yeah.
I mean, drive-through restaurants, obviously, we're just calling that out. Those aren't going to be allowed.
Right.
But just
And again,
to say anything
it's
that's
discretionary.
incompatible,
It depends on where it's at. That's why it's hard to define in a code every scenario. And so if someone wants to put a vehicle repair shop, right, next to a vacant lot, that's one thing than putting it next to an existing residence. But you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we could have 100-page definition of it, or we can just kind of leave it up to,
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
Sean, the concept of a drive-through restaurant, some of the biggest, negatives I think that we've heard are noise, lights, things like that. So if we think of this in those terms, we could call out drive-through restaurants and other land uses that present with, audible or visual, I don't know what the word would be, but disturbances to somebody whispered that. Thank you. That would disturb residential areas. Maybe we could phrase it that way. That way we're defining incompatible as, something that creates that annoyance.
or further define the incompatible in that. But I can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Chadwick and Sean. So it's limiting it, like we're specifically calling out restaurants here. Do we want to just take out the word restaurant and say drive-through?
Well, and if you notice my wording, it says discourage. It doesn't say exclude. It says discourage. And so, staff can discourage someone from coming in, but ultimately it's going to come to you for that decision. I think all drive-throughs are conditional use permits. Most vehicle repairs are conditional use permits. So
What
what
about
this wording is doing is it's just trying to discourage someone from wanting to do it. We just say that, we've got a downtown revitalization code that's coming forward that's going to define these things further. Until that time, though, we're discouraging you from bringing these uses in. Now, if they decide not to listen to me, then they bring it in front of you, and then you guys do the full public hearing, and then you'll determine what's compatible and what's not compatible. That's how I look at it. So I don't think it's really being that restrictive based on the word discourage.
So I think she has
what
further.
about like a pharmacy or a car wash, or even like a auto repair, like a short, like those fast ones. That's essentially like a drive-through.
Mhm.
Or bank.
Or a bank.
Mhm.
Yeah. Are
So
those
saying all
are
drive-throughs?
those allowed in
That's what this is saying.
are those allowed in CBD currently?
All drive-throughs are a conditional use permit in the CBD.
Oh, they are.
Yes. That's why you
So
guys see them. every-
bank, a bank
Bank with the drive-through is a,
would be a conditional. You'd have to go through that process.
So just, Sean, I think to clarify that, should the restaurants come off? So we're just saying all drive-throughs? Or are we saying drive-through specific?
well, that says restaurants, but we could say all drive-throughs. Like
That's
I
what I'm
said,
saying.
I'm just proposing this. You guys got to tell me what you
Yeah.
want.
I mean,
I would suggest
I can take it out
striking
completely and we'll
restaurant
just deal with it.
and leaving drive-through, but striking out the restaurant
That's fine.
term.
And that way all the drive-throughs are being looked at because those can be incompatible with
Right.
residential property or something
Right,
right now.
And
right.
keep in mind, this is the purpose statement of the central business district. So it's just it kind of sets the tone for what we want to see in the central business district. But again, you guys have the ultimate say in those specific uses. We've pretty much made them conditional anyways. This is just, defining it within the
Just letting.
purpose statement.
You probably don't want to bring that.
Might not want to bring it up, right? And rather than me just saying it in the pre-application meeting, I can point to the code says it discourages these in this area.
So I think the drive-throughs by themselves
Take
make more
out-
sense than having restaurants in there because that's what we're trying to discourage.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah,
So I think leaving leaving that whole sentence to, like further state it,
but taking out the restaurants.
but just
Take out
taking
the
out the
restaurant.
restaurants. Yeah.
Did you have something, Councilman?
Let's track restaurants and move on. We got a long night ahead of us.
Right through establishments. Okay.
Stricken.
Okay, and I added this, and I don't know if you guys want to have it in here, but under zoning district 834, additional neighborhood requirements, all trash receptacles located within any residential district within the city shall be removed from the sidewalk and or front yard within 24 hours of collection and placed behind a screened area out of view from the public. This shall be written into the CCNRs of all newly approved subdivisions. This is a kind of a pet peeve of mine in Eagle, where I've got neighbors that leave them out. Their front yard is their trash receptacle. And there's nothing in the Eagle code that prevents it. And it just ticks me off. And so
Mayor Chadwick.
and this can be massaged. I just kind of threw out some wording for you guys to look at.
Okay,
Yeah, Thank you. When I first read that, I was like, wow, that seems like pretty restricted. But I did look at the neighboring, like some other cities, and it sounds like it's pretty common that they have that in some sort of in their code, something similar. My only thing was the screening part. So maybe just taking out that it has to be screened. So it's just placed out of view from the public.
Yeah.
So it doesn't imply you have to have some sort of special, screening thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of a fence. And most CCNRs have
Yeah.
that wording in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 24 hours, but most of them are pretty strict when
Yeah,
it comes
and-
to that.
Boise was the same day, actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how would we keep out of view without a screen of some sort?
Well, I mean, yeah, it could be it could be behind landscaping. It could be behind a
That's
fence. it
that's
could be behind-
screening.
That's screening. Yeah. Screen. That's why it said screened area. Without defining what that would be.
I mean, agreed, just leaving it out of view from the public implies screening, so we probably don't need to have it in there, but I don't think it makes much of a difference. I do question the statement of this shall be written into the CCNRs of newly approved subdivisions. I wonder, does this make it a provision of city code that we're expecting subdivisions to enforce, and does it exclude it from our own code enforcement, or is that just kind of putting it in there so the people are more aware of it?
Yeah.
And we do have code enforcement that can go out, and I wonder if we ought to be more clear about that.
Yeah.
Who's enforcing this?
I mean, we would obviously enforce it if we our code enforcement could
Right.
enforce it.
Only on the new subdivisions, and who would define that line?
This would be
Between here
a
and
city. It would be a
That's
city.
to my point. Like, this makes it appear like it only applies to new subdivisions.
It's not my intent. The intent was to citywide. But I'm saying that it will be incorporated into new subdivisions because there's a lot of subdivisions that don't have CCNRs.
So we have that section of our code that outlines what we're requiring new subdivisions to put in their CCNRs. List that out. We could add that line to be part of that and just
So,
reference back to the,
and put it in.
yeah, we might want to take it out of this. That way this section stands on its own. It's very clear. And then that HOA CCNR section could just point back to this. That way it would apply if we ever change this too, if we pointed back to it.
And again, I think most CCNRs, they're going to probably have it in there anyways.
Yeah.
That seems like something they like to. Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Then additional central business district standards, again, that drive through, we'll take out the restaurants, the establishments,
And change it to drive-through.
drive in. Yeah, drive through. Okay. You guys gonna watch me butcher by typing. Okay. Okay, address numbering. Now, this is a Victor thing. So 88484. Victor, you want to talk about this?
Mayor and council, what this is just a cleanup of what we currently have. There's a lot of confusion on what size, when you should use it. And so we just really went through to kind of clean it up. But in addition to, we now have some bigger lots that the houses sit further off the road. And so we added language in as well to say, hey, if you sit more than 150 off the road, you have to post it at the driveway. That will help us find you, obviously. And then in addition, we added, hey, sometimes there are going to be some projects where, yes, the base code is met, but myself and Kevin can say, hey, we want like you to add for visibility an additional address point here. And so Kevin and I kind of went through this, and that's what we brought to you. So just a little bit addition. Sure.
What's the best way?
Chris, you got to turn your mic on. Sorry.
Sorry, Mayor. Sorry, Dana. But it just, is there a way to, I mean, and I know it's kind of addressed in here, but I've just kind of always wondered, like, if somebody in a apartment complex calls, how does
So
EMS get there and be like, where's building K? And
Yeah.
drive around,
So
around
a
until
couple
they find
things
it.
is when we have an apartment complex come in, we always have them do a map at the entrance. That's the first one. It has to be a lit map. The other thing is they go with the 12-inch number or letter. So if we go A, B, C, and D, right? Or sometimes Ada County likes to address each building. So then we'll have that. And then the unit numbers themselves then fall into the 4-inch, right? So building A would be 12-inch letter, and then the unit number would be the 4-inch letter. Every now and then we will get something where we have to get very inventive, right? They want to use a new modern light or a white letter that lights up at night, but you can't see during the day. And so that visibility of contrasting color is there as well. So we tend to go 100, ones, twos, threes. So each floor, right? That's where 100, 200, 300. Either the building address based on Ada County, or what we're trying to do is really push them to go A, B, and C in a complex. I'm trying to follow along with the Meridian Fire Marshal on how we're labeling these, so we get some consistency across the board. And these are things that the fire marshals and I, on a monthly basis when we talk, these are things that we're trying to achieve as uniformity with building identification. This just helps us here, and then eventually I'll take it over to Middleton to try to get it the same. Because you cross into Canyon County and you build in Canyon County, their addressing is 6-inch letters. Their commercial is 10-inch. There's really no consistency. And so I'm trying little by little to get it to be the same all the way across the board.
Thank you. That was kind of what I was getting at. That's to me seems to be something difficult for the EMS group trying to find things, because it seems to be different just about everywhere.
Yeah, thank the Lord for technology, because GPS and being able to see a map is helpful. But when it goes down, that's really where we need to have a standard. So
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
Another curiosity question. So if a homeowner decides to change their numbering, how do you, and they go with something smaller, like, or how do they know what the requirement is?
So, good question. So a lot of people will go, "Hey, can I do this?" Right? I had a homeowner call a couple weeks ago going, "I want to change my numbers. I don't like them.
Uh-huh,
Right?
yeah.
What can I do?" And so we kind of talked through that, had some education on that. The other thing is really starting to work with like our local establishments, Ridley's, to make sure their product they carry meet the code.
Oh, okay.
Working with Merck to make sure the product they carry meet the code. And that was a great conversation I had this morning with the Ridley's manager. And he goes, "There's a code for that?" And so I'm like, "Yeah." So he goes, "So we should be selling the product that meets the code, especially in your hometown, right?" And so I think going by education, social media, things like that. We do periodically go to a house where my guys will send me an email going, "Chief, like the address is not visible. What can we do?" And then we go out, educate, and try to figure out how we can help.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Right now, we're getting a really, and Kevin would probably agree with this, is there's this modern little skinny number that everybody wants to use, and you can't see it.
Uh-huh.
So-
Right. Yeah. It'd be worthwhile doing some sort of PR or something on that or include it in our newsletter at some time.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really on them. I mean, we've dealt with this even in the construction industry all the time where they go change it and
Yeah.
it's an education thing.
Yeah.
But-
All right,
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, is that it for you, Victor?
that's it. Back to Sean.
This was easy. Thanks, Victor. Okay, fences. Section 8(4)(a)(11). Okay. So I further defined fence height. All fences shall, and this is what we've always had, is our fences are supposed to be a maximum of 6 feet in height. Our old code, I believe it said, okay, let's see. What it said was fences taller than 6 feet required a zoning certificate and a building permit from the city of Star. So anyone wanted a fence taller than 6 foot had to do that. I'm talking to Kevin. Kevin doesn't want to issue a building permit. There's really nothing to inspect or anything on a fence. We can do a zoning certificate, but then we constantly get neighbors wanting to add a couple feet to their fencing. Specifically, the Heron River folks have contacted me wanting to do this. And so I took a stab at trying to come up with a waiver permit for fence height. And so this is what I came up with, and we can discuss this and see if this is the direction we want to go. So again, I'm stating that all fences shall be a maximum of 6 feet in height unless approved through a fencing waiver permit. Height is hereby measured from the bottom of the hereby measured from bottom to top of panel. Post height not to exceed 8 inches above the panel. Okay, then in the fence height permit, fence waiver permit may be issued to allow a fence up to 8 feet, subject to the following: certificate of zoning compliance. That's where staff would review it for compliance. Subject fence is not located adjacent to a common area, common open space, corner lot, or adjacent to a public right of way. So we're really looking at internal lots in between properties is what we're looking at, but backyards and things like that. Subject fence is located. Okay. Subject fence is located on a property line that has received written permission from all property owners affected by the fence location. The subject fence must remain consistent with all property lines. If fencing is on the rear yard property line of a corner lot, the fencing shall transition down to 6 feet and remain at that height next to the right of way. I'll explain this in a second. At no point shall the fence be any closer than 5 foot from the sidewalk. So in looking at the diagram here, so these are really what we're talking about right here are these rear fence lines. So again, we don't want them up on corner lots where you can see 8-foot fences on the right of way. We don't want them against common lots. And as far as getting permission, so we want to make sure that, so just because this guy right here wants to have an 8-foot fence, his neighbors behind him might not want to have that. So they need to work together and approve each other having the ability to raise those fences. That's in a nutshell what that waiver permit is detailing. So I will open it up for
Any questions on that,
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman?
Sean, so
Yes.
would this apply for, what about those that it's a standard 6-foot fence and then they want to add like a 2-foot screen on top of it and extend it to the 8-foot? So would they have to get this waiver, or is that something that they just,
So like a lattice, like a
Yeah,
2-foot lattice. Yeah,
exactly.
that would extend the height of the fence.
yep, okay.
Yeah, because you could do a 4-foot high fence with a 2-foot lattice, and we'd call that a 6-foot.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, so this applies to those. Yep, thank you.
So thank you, Mayor. I understand that we don't want to do a building permit. I don't want to create any more on that either, but I'm just thinking of the number of fences I've seen and the number of neighbors who have put in fences by me that put a 6-foot fence with a 7-foot pole that sticks out, 6.5 feet from the ground. And there's just not enough weight or distance in the ground.
Right.
And now we're pushing up to 8 feet. That really requires 2 feet in the ground with 8 inches of concrete around it, depending on the size of the post, right? So it might be helpful to have a standard that we put in the code
I would agree.
we ask people to comply with. I'd like to see something, if not a inspection and permit, but something that like provides some guidance of, okay, we're gonna put a huge wind barrier up there.
Right.
Let's not make it too big of a lever without some leverage underground.
And we could add that right to this section of the code. So even though it wouldn't require a building permit, it's still going to be reviewed. So they would still have to provide show us how deep the footings are going to be, the foundation.
And I say 8 inches of concrete. I don't know. It's probably more like 10. But that guy would know.
So yes, we could add that to it to make sure that
1 foot for every 10 inches, 2 feet.
You want to address that?
So that's in relation to fences. The tough part is the fences are not in the code anywhere. It would be where we might want to get and this is where I don't want to go, is to get an engineer to design us a fence. That's just too much, right? So we got to figure out an easier way to go about this, whether exemption of a permit or
The certificate of zoning compliance where it comes through him,
yeah.
I think works. The permit process is painful. For every fence in town, that's too much overreach, in my opinion. I think if you just put standards in there and he reviews those standards, and if you decide to go out and check it, then you can say, no, you have to change it, whatever.
Would you think of having some sort of like self-certification that the homeowner can verify or certify that they've done it per our standards?
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd be in favor of any sort of paperwork, but like as we're talking, I'm thinking maybe there's a table. I'm sure there's an engineering standard for the size of post, height of post, recommended
1 foot
diameter of the
1
hole,
foot in the
depth
ground
of
for
the
every
hole,
10 feet of pole.
something like that.
There's got to be standards out there.
Yeah. And
That's a standard for a flagpole.
you said 1 foot for every 10 feet?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
That's the standard.
I
Flagpole.
understand for a flagpole, but a fence is,
No, I understand. I'm just telling you what the.
so there's
out there.
probably something that the professionals go by that we could just capture and put in there.
We could put that right in this section right here.
Can we also add just so people know that if they're going to put an extra screen or that lattice work or whatever, that they also need to get a waiver?
Well, that's part of the 8 feet. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't.
I think what we do is what we can define and make sure that it's understood that
includes
lattice is also
That,
in the
yeah,
height.
yeah, yep,
Fence. Yeah, we
Yep.
can add that.
yep.
Okay.
Questions? So it sounds like that's a doable thing. I mean, do you agree that we should have them on corner lots, not have them against common?
We don't do it right
Yes.
now as it is,
I
right?
think we're really talking about where you're not gonna be able to see it, other than the neighbors will see it amongst themselves, and as long as they all agree that that's what they want, they can move forward.
Councilman Wheelock.
So 2 questions. Who enforces this? And are we going to retro enforce it?
No,
No,
it would just be, yeah, it would be, like the folks at Heron River came to me specifically and wanted to know how they could do this.
Who enforces it?
So Mayor, I have
Sec-
that question
And what's the penalty?
on the enforcement as well. So what, the way that we're writing this code, does it give us with how it's written, do we already have the ability to enforce it from code enforcement, or do we need to do something different so that we have an enforcement piece? I have that same question, Councilman Wheelock. And I didn't even think about it till tonight, as much as we've talked about this.
Could
And
it
then
be,
Councilman Wheelock, it would be code
how
enforcement
would you
and
enforce it today?
that would be enforcing it.
could it
Right now,
be,
every fence over 6 foot is in violation, subject to the current code. Without ability.
could we add something that just says, like, if an official complaint is filed, then there would be an enforcement?
I think it's given.
Who's given it?
Pretty given.
Oh, okay.
But we also need to have the ability to, if there's not a complaint, to address it prior to an issue coming up. So if we're doing drive-throughs through subdivisions and stuff, and we see something, we need to have the ability to address it prior to somebody making a complaint about it. If we're going to put it in our code.
We see it, chances are it's gonna be on the corner lot. Or
Yep.
Then we can.
Basically, we're going to allow 8 feet if you just come in here where we don't allow it today.
As long as you get
Correct.
Approval from your neighbor.
Right. And you come in and get your
'Cause it's also to protect.
zoning
it's
certificate.
Also to
Protect.
protect the neighbor too.
Yep.
Mayor Chadwick.
Yep.
I think that probably neighbors will help enforce this. If one neighbor starts to do it and they don't like it, they'll probably ask questions. At least that's not enforcement, that's awareness. And in terms of enforcement, I mean, that we're requiring a certificate of zoning compliance. So I would, maybe Chris, this is for you, but any sort of remedy that could be taken when zoning compliance isn't met is the enforcement, which was what, maybe civil proceeding?
Yes, in Title I of our code, we have a general penalty chapter. And so every violation of the city code is, I mean, technically a crime, either a citation, an infraction, or a misdemeanor. And we could designate it kind of any of them, but we always have, we don't need a special clause that says we have the ability to enforce fences because it's in our code. And if they don't do it, we have the right to enforce it. And then citations are just fines. So basic sort of infractions, misdemeanor is potential jail time up to a year. I don't think we have very many things in our code that we've identified as misdemeanor. So basically everything we have is kind of an infraction. It's like getting a traffic ticket. And so that would be the enforcement for this, is that whenever driving around, if the city sees it themselves, they can go issue a citation. Or if a neighbor calls and says, hey, I don't know what my neighbor is doing, but they've got this 6-foot fence. Now they're putting a 4-foot lattice on top of it. They can hang a basketball hoop at the top, right? I mean, that's a problem. And then we can go out. I mean, it's kind of how we enforce everything with code enforcement. We have people that drive around town and see it and they can identify it, or we just act based on a citizen complaint. And then we go look and determine if it's a violation, and then we take care of it. So I don't think we need to do anything different for this unless you want to.
I haven't. So first violation, they don't change anything. They've already spent the money for the fence and they just leave it. Is that an ongoing? Do they have 6 months to fix it? Do they have a year? What's that look like? Just
Brian,
So-
are you the code enforcement
yeah,
officer?
so-
Is it a
Councilman-
incremental penalty?
Councilman Wheelock. So right now our code is written that we issue them a letter and we give them a 2-week time period with which to remedy the letter, remedy the situation. If they don't, then we kind of get into that unique situation where we can continue to issue fines. The way our code is currently written is that we can come before you, the council, and we can get permission to go and remediate it ourselves and bill the homeowner for whatever costs that we incur. But the way our code is written today, we have to get that authority from the council. So we would bring that to you.
Sounds popular. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor? Chris, Ryan, whoever wants to answer. So is this anywhere on the property or does it have to be visible from the street?
It's the entire property.
So it doesn't matter if you can see whatever the infraction is, as long as the neighbors can see it from either side or the back, but you can't see it from the driveway, it's still an infraction.
Yeah, for the fence code, basically it's a 6-foot fence.
Right.
Right? You can go up to 8 with the waiver like Sean's been talking about.
Yeah.
But that's the entire perimeter of your property.
Okay.
You don't get to say, well, I can stand out in the middle of the street and I can't see it, so I can
Right.
build it 10 feet tall
Right.
or 9 feet 8 inches because I still can't see it. But if I go a little higher, then I can. So yeah, it's not and part of it's especially in a neighborhood like the
Right.
drawing that we have on the TV, right? I mean, all those back fence lines or side fence lines are also somebody else's fence line.
Right.
And so the expectation is that everybody has the responsibility to meet the fence standard. The reality is if you're maybe on the edge of town and you've got a large acreage and you've got a tall fence someplace,
Right.
Likely nobody is going to see it. And maybe it's been there since before you annex into the city or whatever. And those are different questions. But for something like what we're talking about, neighborhood fences and those sorts of things, that applies whether or not there's visibility from standing in front of the house.
Right. So if a neighbor builds a fence adjacent to the fence that's already there, say it's a partial fence, say it's on stilts, but there's like 2 or 3 feet that are above. So you only got like this much fence. The rest is 4x4 stilts. It's still 2 or 3, 4 feet above the regular fence.
Yeah, we maybe
So-
need to work on an actual definition of what fence is, but I think that's kind of Jennifer's.
Is this experience? Is this at your house?
Maybe. No, but I'm just saying, so,
Yeah.
there's more than one way to.
Yeah, the
somebody
intent is that fence, it's not just, you can't start your fence 2 feet above the ground and then go up 6 feet.
I think we currently have somewhere, Ryan, didn't we? We
It's
we
2
made a
inches.
requirement that you only could have a certain gap between the.
So,
There's a requirement for the developer.
It's 2 inches.
Where it has to be 2
2
inches. from
inches,
the
yeah,
ground for
yeah.
development-
Yeah, we've got
developer
that.
installed
We've got
fence.
that in a different section of the
But-
code. Yeah.
The reality is the definition for the fence is from really the ground to the.
so you can't start your fence 6 feet above the ground and go up 3 feet.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that would violate the
8
code.
feet total from the ground. So I want to ask a question of you guys then. So if a developer decides to put these in, do they have to come and get a certificate of zoning compliance to do this on new developments when they're building those things?
If it's above 6 foot.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So how do we, the way this is written, is this written for everybody then? New developments and stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I don't know that anybody would care
Oh, no.
if they were buying the lots with a
Yeah.
6-foot fence with a
To be-
2-foot.
For consistency though.
And there
I think
could,
it's
there
important.
could be a situation when you're getting close to the foothills where you might need an 8-foot fence because of the slope and everything. And it might, it might.
I think to Steve's point, though, the way this is written, what he's talking about would be allowed.
What I need to do is I need to pull from the other section where we have the 2-inch gap and bring that over here.
Right, but the
From the-
height is
from the
hereby
floor.
measured. I mean, that's a definition. So that's going to, maybe we got to make sure that that's consistent.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So just to find the fence is all.
Yeah, because the height really should be measured from the ground to top of panel, right?
Right.
Not from bottom to top of panel.
Say that again.
So the last sentence, I think that Kevin was referring to, or second to last sentence of the first paragraph, height is hereby measured from bottom to top of panel. We probably should say from ground to top of panel, not from the, because to Steve's comment, that would allow you to start 2 feet up and then go 6 feet from there. And you say, oh, I've got a 6-foot fence because I measured from the bottom to the top.
So here's
If
the
we want to
reason that
measure
we
from the
put that
ground.
definition in is because most of the panels that they're putting in on the vinyl fences are 6 feet. So if you have the 2-inch gap, what we're getting is the phone calls from Mrs. Kravitz, who says that fence is 6 foot 3 inches. And so
but
we
all
said,
just learned what it's like to be Steve's neighbor, where he's got a 6-foot fence and then he's built a pseudo fence behind it to go up another 2 feet. He can do that according to that definition.
because he's 8 feet tall, so he sees over the 6-foot fence. And but that's why we came for the panel. But we probably need to clarify it better because the panel is 6 feet. So,
And maybe there's just another thing that says the bottom of the panel has to be within 2 inches of the
Yeah.
ground.
There is.
So that gives you the total fence height, the panel height, 6 feet. And then you've got a little bit of play on the install, where you can, where it can be up or down a little bit.
Chris, the other thing that keeps coming up is, well, the center post, it's, the panel's 6 foot tall, but the post is another 2 inches above that, 3 inches above that. Well, that fence is now 6 foot tall. So hence another reason that we added the panel sections in there, because you're not going to be able to, you can't go buy a 5'8" panel to keep your fence posts under 6 foot.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And that last sentence, I think, was a good add, where the post height can't go 8 inches above the panel. And so whatever that, whether 8 inches is the right number or not, I don't know. But I think it's good to have that clarification because Ryan's friend, Mrs. Kravitz, will complain about everything.
They do too, don't they? They do.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we fenced out yet? Because I am.
Okay, outdoor.
Fenced out. Let's go.
Outdoor lighting, street light style. So I think what I'd like to do is have an actual style in the code since this is what we're telling everybody. So now we'll put it in the code so they can follow it and not have any complaints or questions. So that would be the street light standard for inside a subdivision. And then we would have our historic light standard
That's just in downtown.
in downtown. In the downtown area.
Yep.
Okay. No complaints there. All good. Parking standards. Working with Victor and with the design review team in determining aisle width. So we've made it standard that all drive aisles in commercial developments are going to be a 26-foot width to meet fire district requirements. Any elaboration on that, Mister?
Hold it for me. Thank
How about we just grab that other, we have more mics? We have more mics
you.
in the closet?
We like to share. It's more of a team. It's more of a teamwork
I know. but-
type of thing. So the thought process is looking over the last year or so when we get applications in for either CUPs or something, they have to come to council. We're seeing that we're making them, due to their building size, have to go to 26. The other thing is looking at the code itself is, especially the downtown area, a lot of our commercial is serviced by the ladder truck. And so having that 26, that 2 extra feet does help us navigate that. And so that really was the push, is to just, we're making them go 26 anyway. Sorry, excuse me, I'd like to restate that, ladder truck and cranes to fit better through our parking lots. And so I just found that it's just easier to fix it and go 26 across the board.
Chris?
No, I'm totally fine with that. You also come from language that says or as required by the district, so that you still have some discretion. If there's something unique, you can make it wider. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
In case I get a
Microphone.
bigger brain.
We need a green light.
Sean,
really?
before you, sorry, Mayor Chadwick.
Yep.
Sean, before you go too far ahead, couple pages down, you talk about the actual parking requirement per type of use. Couple pages down, before you skip.
Skip some?
It's coming.
Skip something?
Still coming up.
Oh, maybe this
have
is a
that there yet?
summary. Is this just your summary document?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But if you want to add something, go ahead.
Well, okay, so a couple pages down, we have a table that lists how much parking per type of business. And one thought, I recently had a notice that churches are currently required for one per every 5 seats. And so I thought I thought that was kind of low. And so I would recommend changing that to 1 to every 4 seats. And would be interested in if anybody else would agree with that or disagree, wants to keep it at 5, but I don't know, 1 per 4 seems more like with our current times that everybody drives.
Yeah, no,
Anyone?
that's an old standard in the code.
Okay.
Maybe larger families back in the 60s when that portion of the code was
Right.
probably written.
You know, we have churches in, more residential areas so that it helps prevent spillover into neighborhood streets. Or, like LifeSpring, sometimes their parking lot gets really packed. And so,
Yeah. I would suggest that we just put what I put in all the ones when we don't really know what to look at is we since all churches are required to go through a conditional use permit, we can just state that as approved by through the conditional use permit. That way we can look at it on a case by case basis and decide, maybe they have overflow parking somewhere else but rather than having a specific number, we keep the 1 per 5 or as approved through the conditional use permit. That way we can look at it on a case by case basis.
where a conditional use is required.
Well, this would be specific to churches and a conditional use is required on all churches.
Oh,
So
okay.
that grid breaks down each use, like for
Yeah.
health and fitness, we have that on there right now, that it's 1 per whatever,
5.
or
Yeah.
as approved through the conditional use permit. So we just put that on the definition for the churches.
Okay.
It is interesting if you Google it, it actually says, these are actually church websites, but it says they recommend 1 parking space for every 2 to 2.5
Right.
capacity of the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
First.
So we'd be double what we currently have is kind of what people
Yeah.
that build churches recommend. Not that we need that in the city code, but I just thought it was interesting as part of this conversation that even the people that build churches recommend more parking than we require.
I mean, like I said, we can change it. We can change it to 3. I mean, 3 seems, I think, more reasonable. At the
Mayor
moment.
Chadwick.
Councilman?
Yeah, I think that seems like a reasonable thing to do. It seems like an easy thing to do, and we can still look at it in the conditional use permit. I think we can add that language, but the sanctuaries are often built at a certain size, and then churches have overflow internally as well. And so we don't really account for that. We just account for the size of the sanctuary. So 2.5 to 3 seems like a reasonable thing to do.
So
1 for 3.
Let's go-
3.
let's go 3.
Like 3, and then we'll keep in or as approved through the conditional use.
Yeah.
Gives us the flexibility if there's a
Yep.
situation. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay. God bless you. We added a section for ADA stalls. This was Mr. Morgan, Brian Morgan brought this up. So for ADA stalls where a van space and regular accessible space share an aisle, the van space shall be located on the passenger side to prevent vans from needing to back into the space. So that's a kind of a common sense one. Drive-through establishments, again, I added the drive-through restaurants shall not be permitted in the downtown. And again, the language, I guess, is different here than it was earlier, where I said it's discouraged. Again, that was the purpose statement, and this is the actual standard. So, we can, first of all, change it from restaurants just to establishments. But then it says shall not be permitted within the designated downtown revitalization plan area of the CBD district, as may be further adopted by council in the future. This area is generally located from the west side of Seneca Springs Way to Center Street on State Street, Main Street south of State Street, Star Road south of State Street, and Star Road north.
Mayor Chadwick.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, probably just similar language. I'm curious about defining the area since we've already defined it in the CBD district. Should we just point back to that?
Well, right now, the
That's code
CBD
maintenance.
goes all the way down to the river, goes all the way out to Canada, and goes all the way down. So it's kind of a quick fix until we really define it through our revitalization exercise. That's why I picked specific.
Okay, let me read that again. So within the designated downtown revitalization plan area of the CBD district.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are creating in this a new area or
Yes.
a specific area.
And that's kind of based on what we think
Sub area.
the revitalization area is going to be.
Okay, got it.
And that's not defined yet.
Yeah.
Secondary dwelling units. So if you guys have seen our code for that, it's to allow for granny flats and things like that in the backyards. We originally had a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. We get a lot of folks that are wanting to do these and they don't have quite 10,000 square feet. So I just took out the 10,000 and put a sufficient size to meet all side and rear setbacks of the district without requiring a variance. If detached, a minimum of 10 feet shall be required between the SDU and the primary structure. So it still gives people the ability to.
Are we treating this different than an ADU?
Say it, we call it SDU in
I think we
the
need,
city.
I think we need to follow what the state is doing because there's a lot of legislation running. We're going to run into challenges with this anyway, I think, depending on what happens, and we're going to try to stop it. But there's legislation being put out there that accessory dwelling units are a right. They preempt cities from being able to limit things.
We're not limiting them.
No, but what I'm saying though is we
At
can't
all?
even, no. And that's stuff that is starting to roll out now in this session that we're going to try to battle on that. But just so you're aware, but I think we should call it accessory dwelling unit.
Oh, change the names, what you're
Change the
saying.
name,
Okay,
like
yeah.
the state code is following ADUs. So we're not upside down on that.
Okay.
I love my seat. Who did you do it?
Hey, that's it.
That's awesome. You were done?
Yeah.
Okay, there's
Not
a
bad.
couple things I want to ask you then, because we missed them.
Okay.
Residential parking district, you have that in here?
Yes.
We need to talk about that one?
So
'Cause we
basically-
approved this a while back.
So remember, we approved that. I'm just adding that to the code. But again, we haven't approved any specific areas. Someone would still have to come and request it, and we'd have to take it through council and actually establish a specific district.
Okay, I just want to make sure just to be clear that we were clear on that. Alternate posting requirements.
Oh, yeah, did I have that on there?
No, we didn't talk about it if you
Okay.
had it on there.
All right. So there are scenarios. We came across one last month. We came across one last month with the Sean Sunwall where he didn't have anywhere to post a public hearing sign because it was an enclave without street frontage. So there was no legal place to put it. So we came up with an alternative and he just put a stake with a 11 by 17 laminated posting mark so we could meet the intent of that. So that just allows me the ability to waive or alter that requirement in those scenarios.
Along with that, we had extension of an area of like 1,000 feet notification instead of just 300 feet, right?
We have that for certain specific uses, like gravel pits and things like that have 1,000
Right,
foot.
but your code is proposing an extension to 1,000 feet?
Mm,
Okay.
No.
I got that wrong.
Okay, yeah.
I thought I saw that in there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our alternate posting requirements still meets state code.
Yeah, well, yeah, we was.
So just as long as any applicant realizes they can't just
Right.
do whatever.
Still has to meet state
They
code.
still got to meet state code standards. That's all.
And I will add that to the end of that definition.
Mayor Chadwick, can I also request that you put something that says, like maybe in our packet, that, you know, that the it was approved in writing, like that you, like, so that we're aware that proper posting was done. There was an exception that had to be, or an alternate posting that had to be made, and that you approved it in advance. So
I can put it in the staff report and I'll just
Yeah,
put that section
yeah,
and state.
just so that we know
way-
that it was still taking place how it's supposed to.
Okay, who's next here? Let's see. Flood ordinance.
We're doing flood now.
No need to address the flood issues. There's no water this year.
There may be next.
We'll deal with it then.
Most of the changes that are in here are either clerical or updating based on some changes that the state made a couple years ago that we just needed to update and define and basically bring our stuff into compliance with how the state treats irrigation districts. So that's most of what's going to be in here. So I think this would go pretty fast. I didn't do a breakdown of like Sean did. We just get to scroll through the entire code until we see a change. So right here, this is one of the things that I talked about with the state and how they treat the irrigation districts. Basically what it does is it gives the irrigation districts a lot more flexibility and doesn't require us as cities to mandate some of what they're doing when it comes to cleaning and maintaining their irrigation ditches that may be located within a floodplain. Right. So it allows them to go in and clean and maintain and do minor repairs and all that without having to get a floodplain application. And you'll see a lot of defining inside the definition section of what the different cleaning, maintaining, repairing, what some of that is in the definitions.
Ryan,
Yes.
is most of this language more limiting or just redefining?
Most of it is actually releasing some restrictions, so less limiting.
Thank you.
These sections here, somehow or another, these two sections were literally just duplicates of about 3 rows above. So been in our code that way since we adopted it in 2020 and time to get it fixed.
Were the definitions the same if they were in there 2 or 3 times?
They were only in there twice, and yes, the definitions were literally duplicate copies.
They were duplicates.
This one here, we specifically call our floodplain development permit an application for permit to develop in an area of special floodplain hazard. So just clarifying what our actual title is of that permit is called. Again, irrigation, what's allowed with the irrigation districts. More irrigation. This one specifically defines what maintenance is. And if you want me to slow down and read any of these, just let me know. operation for irrigation districts, repair. We finally made it through all the definitions. This here, and you'll see this repeated multiple times throughout. FEMA never or no longer uses the zone A1, A2. They used to call them numbered or unnumbered zones. That is a terminology that has been done away with in about the last 5 to 10 years. All of our new maps that are now updated no longer have any reference to any of those zones. So there's no reason for them to be in our ordinance anymore. Correct. AE, there is some AO, there's also some just A. There's always X, and then there's also B and C's. We don't get a lot of B's and C's, but that is something out there. And then if you live on the coast, you'll see a lot of V zones. That's coastal, that has to do with tides. Just adding a little bit of, we require in our application them to provide contours, base flood elevation contours, and some of that. Just putting that in the code, so it's not just in our application, just gives us a little more strength to require that in our application. Again, you see the reference to the A1, A30, getting rid of that. I honestly did not realize this section was in here. It required them as part of their final elevation certificates to provide photos. I actually go out and do a site inspection before we do issue a certificate of occupancy. It's not required by FEMA to provide those photos. It's an alternate that you can do, an add that you can do. We haven't required it because I'm doing those site inspections myself.
And I think in the past, when this was put in, we didn't have anybody like you that was doing that.
True.
It was a city clerk.
Yeah.
That was our flood administrator as well.
Yep. So between Kevin Pitt and myself, we're definitely out there making sure that things are built to standards.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
So what happens if you leave and go look at birds?
Well, it'd be
I
the.
mean, is that like in your job description or like, so that's like you're required forever?
Forever.
Chasing birds. It's similar. Go bigger.
There, as part of the definition section, it's defined that the floodplain administrator is as assigned by the mayor. So I am currently the assigned floodplain administrator. If I were to leave, retire, get hit by a bus, whatever it might be, the mayor can then assign somebody else to be that.
Pterodactyl carries them off.
So that function would continue and,
The same process goes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as a floodplain administrator, if I'm on vacation and these need to happen, I can direct somebody else to do it, just as, the building official. It doesn't have to always be the one to do it as long as it's under their supervision.
Yeah. Okay.
Has everybody met our
That's a good question. Has everybody met Paul Brooks, who is our new, soon to graduate, staff engineer? He's working with us part-time at this point in time until he graduates in May, with the hope that we'll bring him on full-time after that.
Oh, yeah, you did meet him there.
Yeah, that's right. He was.
I just want to make sure that everybody knew that. Well, the Collins now know who he is. And I appreciate you guys coming out here on your date night for this. I know it is your date. Okay, good.
There's some popcorn over there.
And we're already talking about sending Paul to some floodplain stuff this summer.
So we'll have
get up
backup for that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
In other words, that goes with the position.
And at any time, the mayor can change that to somebody else's position. Take that as you want. More AO. On this one, it says the bottom of all flood openings shall be no higher than, you used to see the say the 1 foot above the BFE. Well, a floodplain opening above the BFE makes no sense. You want it to be below the base flood elevation where possible. So we've changed that to actually meet what FEMA requires, and that it sits 1 foot above the interior exterior grade of the building. And the reason for that is most foundations are not designed to withstand the hydraulic pressures. So as the water crawls up the foundation wall, after it gets to be about a foot in height, it starts creating too much pressure that it can actually topple those foundations. And so you are required to put those openings at a foot above, no more than a foot above ground, so it equalizes the elevation of the water inside and outside of the building. So that's one of those, just correcting a perpetual mistake that's been in there for a while to update it to what FEMA actually requires. More the A numbered zones. This gives a little bit of guidance. This is probably one of the biggest changes that I made. There's what's called a substantial improvement, which allows a developer or a home builder, anybody at the home, they can come in and they can add to their home, and they don't have to raise it to current standards as long as they aren't doing more than 50% of the home value in their improvements. What is starting to happen across the nation is people are coming in, they're doing one, and a month after they finish that one, they come in and they do another, and then they do another, and before you know it, their home is 5 times more than it used to be. So what this is doing is limiting, and I've put 3 years in, I'm willing to listen to other, but they're not allowed to, within that 3-year period, do more than 50% of their existing home.
Is 3-year a standard? Where did you get the number?
As I did some research, I've seen them anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. So I kind of took the middle ground.
Okay. I don't see any issue with that. Does anybody? Kevin?
What would that have done to this application that we had here a year ago?
I don't think anything to that one.
It would not have affected that one at all because he was doing exterior additions. So anytime you do an exterior, changing outside walls, you automatically have to bring the exterior. What it could have done is if those improvements, and we have the calculations of the documents to show that those improvements weren't more than 50% of the home, otherwise the entire home would have to come up.
Right, but I don't see a distinction between interior and exterior. I mean, it says rehabilitation, addition, reconstruction. I mean, we're not excluding exterior in this.
Part of the definitions do talk about exterior versus interior.
Okay, so that's elsewhere.
Yes.
And directly related to this? Okay.
That is a good question.
In that scenario, only the exterior improvement in the case that we had before the city has to meet the standards. Unless it had been more than 50%, then the entire home would have had
Correct.
to meet the standard.
That is correct.
If it's all interior, you're not changing the exterior, so you don't have to do anything outside unless you hit the 50%. Then again, the whole home has to be brought up.
Correct.
Okay.
We saw a home on Main Street get leveled and
Yep.
brought up above that here over the last year because they wanted to do some improvements and just did the whole thing. So
The other thing this does is through 1 and 2 down there is if a building is listed on a historical registry, whether it be a state or federal, they are allowed to ignore that 50% rule as long as they aren't changing the principal use of that building. We did not have that in here, and we couldn't allow renovations of historical structures under our current code. This does allow for that.
good.
Just updating the reference, it referenced a section that I couldn't find anywhere in our code. Yeah. Here's another one that I changed. We used to state that the interior grade of a crawl space must not be below the BFE. What that was doing was if you wanted a 4-foot crawl space, that meant your house had to be elevated 4 foot above the base flood elevation. We're now changing this, which FEMA completely allows. We're changing this to allow that crawl space to be 2 foot below the BFE or basically match, or at which then you can have a 4-foot crawl space and still meet our requirement of your finished floor has to be elevated 2 foot above the BFE. And that's where that 2 foot came from, is to allow for that 4-foot crawl space, but still not have to elevate your home 2 additional feet.
Does that mean that it has to have flow throughs that are still a foot above that base flood elevation?
Yep.
So you can have a 2-foot pool in your crawl space as opposed to a 4-foot pool?
Well, potentially, if your crawl space sits 2 foot below the existing grade, yes.
With that, and with that, is there a size problem to that access?
Most flood vents are 12
That's
by
not a
18.
standard anything if you've got a 4-foot stem wall.
Well, in a river house, we had to put in those flood vents
We had to put in, we actually had to cut
there,
that
and
out.
that's a deep, I mean,
That
it
one is
was built
deep.
years
Yep.
ago. That's a deep, like 4 foot, 4.5 feet, I think, or so down there.
They were 46 inches.
Yeah, 46. Crazy.
I just was wondering if there was any kind of a crawl space defense, I guess.
Like a sump pump or something, or what?
No, so the critters, kids, whatever, can't get in and out. You're talking about a pretty good amount of in and out with a hole that has to be just barely above
Yeah.
floodplain, right?
Yep.
If you've got that kind of hole in your sidewall, what are the requirements to protect that from outside and inside?
I will say that most people that have that big of a hole typically screen them, which is allowed, or they put in the specialized flood vents that stay down until the flood waters come, and then they rise up and pivot based on they're styrofoam on the inside and hard on the outside, and so they actually float. And they get to a certain point, they sit down in a channel, and when we get to a certain elevation, they pop out of that channel and it allows them to then float. So most of the time, you're not going to have free access. There's some kind of screening or other barricade to keep, especially kids out. Yeah, you're going to get potential for critters to get in there, but and that's what's nice about these specialized flood vents is they completely get out of the way and let the flood water flow freely when it needs to. But 99% of the time, it's pretty hard to get into it. This section here is actually referencing the flood code in general. Not sure why it was in here, especially where it was left blank. So again, just a little cleanup. Getting rid of the reference to the unnumbered zones, the unnumbered A zones, because those are no longer used. This requirement here, as it was written, every development in STAR was required to do a CLOMAR, which is a conditional letter of map revision before they could even start work. CLOMARs are expensive. Just the application to FEMA is $8,500 right now, and that doesn't include hiring the engineer to do the work. I didn't feel that was prudent for a 5-6 acre subdivision. And we have required Clomars for some of our larger ones. We required River Park to do it. We required Cranefield to do it. There are others that we've required to do it, but for some of the smaller, and even this even requires a commercial building. Just a one lot would have been required to do a Clomar. So relaxing the standards just a little bit. It gives us the authority to require them where we feel it necessary. It doesn't mandate it for every development. Completely.
Right.
FEMA doesn't require a Clomar at all, ever.
Okay. All right.
And we're done.
The end. Anything for engineer, chief engineer, whatever we want to call him, Morgan, bird watcher,
Extraordinaire.
birdman?
No,
All right.
yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. We have
Next one is
Kevin Pitt.
Yep.
The building.
Yep. I'll just.
Don't look so excited, Trevor.
I know. If you guys on your day night would like some popcorn for the show, you may have some. Or can't, or whatever, what is that? Healthy stuff. Fruit.
Oh, again, good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to go over some stuff here.
Is your light on?
Yes, the the green one?
I can't see it.
Can you hear me now?
There.
All right. So a couple items we want to go over, just to add to our code. Basically, right here is the construction without permit penalty. This is something that is in every jurisdiction, but we just don't have it codified in our codes. It's just specifying when any construction that is required by the code does not have a permit. When someone does that without a permit, there's going to be a double penalty. This is almost verbatim to 99% of the jurisdictions in the valley. And that's where, when we put it out there, everybody knows it. Everybody anticipates that if they do work without a permit, this will be what happens. But take a read through that. If there's any questions.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman?
I'm just curious, how often do we come across that situation?
To be honest, not that often. We have a lot of, if we do, it's usually a homeowner that isn't aware of it. And that's where it's an educational piece where I can talk to them, work them through it, help them get their permit. And then in that situation, I don't feel it's necessary to give them a double fee. It's when we find someone who has had permits in the past, or they're a registered contractor who knows when permits are required.
Got it. Thanks. That's encouraging.
Now we want to work with our residents. I like patio covers. Yes, that's a very great, a really good example.
Some fences.
Some fences over 6 feet. And then the second one here is authorization of property owners being required. Seems kind of redundant, but we don't have anything currently in our code where someone could pull a permit on your house or your property without your acknowledgement. So we want to have something on applications that the permit holder must have prior authorization from the property owner.
Chris, you and I talked about this not
We
too long.
had a specific,
Kind of dawned on us that a renter could actually come and pull a building permit and do an addition on the house without permission from the property owner.
the state code does allow quite a bit of leeway on that. So we want to just maybe make
Tighten it up a little bit.
How are we checking that the legal property owner is the one with the permit?
Our building permit does not have even the owner information on it. So that's what we're going to add the owner information on there. So now
And an affidavit, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Would it have to be notarized or?
we didn't,
That's what we got to kind of work out, is
Yeah.
figure out how far we want to go with that. Whether we leave it up to the contractor as their responsibility to do so, or do we want to get, again, some sort of legal affidavit?
I suggest having a disclaimer where the contractor signs that says that he's signing as an authorization, as being authorized by the property owner, that puts the burden on him
Yeah.
if he doesn't.
But this,
Get that.
but real quick, sorry, Kevin, you listen here, forms of authorization. Property owner authorization shall be provided in a form acceptable to the building department.
I think you have a different version of,
What?
you have a different version, I think, because that's not on here.
So are we
That-
saying that you don't want to do that?
Well, that's where
I-
kind of wanted this. I mean, that's definitely some more steps. And would we need to require that on every single mechanical, electrical, plumbing permit? It might get a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, so a couple things pop up for me. Number one is just a burden on you guys, like tracking down. You almost have to have a relationship with the title company, right? And then number two, let's say like my wife and I own our property jointly, and does legal property owner, because her name's on it too, mean that she has to be there? And if I go and pull a permit and she doesn't like it, now you guys have given me a permit, and we've got this, legal property. So just some things to think through with that guy.
I remember that
And you're running
movie.
away. You're letting us figure it out.
I remember the War of the Roses. I saw that movie.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, how hard would it be just to require a deed as part of the application?
Every building permit.
And that's where would we draw the line? Would that need to be, and I guess that's more, and we're looking at it from a contractor's perspective. If a contractor is pulling a water heater permit, would he need to then provide that? Or in certain situations, are we okay with them getting kind of a self-certification? Yes, I have permission from the property owner. And I think this might be better suited for building permits when we're doing additions or building new homes, that type of thing.
Remodel or up,
Yeah,
not just a maintenance change out.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, like just a mechanical permit or electrical permit, I don't know if maybe we still do. But if if it's actually a building permit, then maybe that's where this comes into, or we want,
This situation we ran into was specifically for a single family home.
yeah.
Um,
I guess if we require an affidavit of ownership like we do, what do we require for a subdivision application?
Affidavit
We-
of ownership.
And do they have
Or-
to,
Or their signature on the application. The owner could sign the application themselves if they wanted to.
so do we need to do anything different than that process?
I think it's the same.
Right now, we don't.
Right. No,
But we could.
Can we just mirror that process with this? And so that's what we asked for a subdivision, but if somebody wants to get a building permit or other kind of permit that we want to apply this to, we just do the same thing. We need an affidavit of legal ownership or permission. And then, so either the application is signed by the owner or we have an affidavit from the owner saying, yeah, go ahead.
So what are other entities doing?
In this situation that we ran into, they're leaving it up to basically it'd be between the contractor and the property owner.
So in other jurisdictions, they have this information on the building permit.
Yeah, similar to what
So
Sean was saying.
We
it would-
don't have it.
It would just be part of the application process and it would be the responsibility of the contractor to verify.
But they don't require affidavit of ownership?
Only when it's owner builder. So if we had a resident coming in wanting to pull a permit for that property, we would need to see some form of identification along with the deed, or if we can look at the county assessor's website. And I think that's the situation we're primarily talking about. The only other situation we would definitely see this in would be like tenant improvements in commercial buildings. Because a tenant can actually pull it as owner builder.
You think about a heating and air change out could be quite expensive. And if a renter decides to do that on top of the owner, then
And without their knowledge.
without their knowledge, and suddenly there's a $25,000 encumbrance on the house. That's a problem.
That's very
That's
likely.
yeah.
They're not cheap anymore.
So are we saying we want to do the affidavit of ownership
Trying
or
not to, well, for example, like if we don't want Corey Barton to have to do it every
Talk to your microphone there,
Well, Corey
Sean.
Barton have to do it 50 times in a month when he's pulling all those permits. I think if his contractor's coming in and doing it, I think we know that he's representing Corey. But for the small one offer or something like that, just every question brings up another question when you're dealing with something like this, because it just hasn't been done.
What if you made this something where it was at the discretion of the building department whether or not to require it? So if you know that the owner's coming in, like on your Corey Barton example,
Yeah.
we know they're Corey's guys. We know they're building on their lots. We don't need this document every time. But if someone comes in and we have a question, then we can say, hey, as part of this, we've got the discretion to require one more piece of paper.
You thinking of Steve's 8-foot fence?
A little bit, yeah.
3.
Or Ryan's birdcage.
Cold showers.
Okay.
So why don't we we'll look into it, and when we come back, we'll have that addressed, have some language, and hopefully we can get the bugs worked out, and it won't be. We're trying not to make it too restrictive or time consuming, but
You had a great point, Kevin, is that could add quite a few layers onto the building department. Well, the rest of it is pretty simple. It's a lot of it's clerical. I literally just went through the chapter 7 portion for the building code. Right here, this portion is just to define the building official's position directly out of the building code. Pretty simple, cut and dry. And then going through here, this is just anything that's in the black type is just existing. Anything red is new. And anything struck out is things that we don't need anymore. We don't do phone-in permits anymore. It's all done via our new portal, which is very efficient. And in fact, we've had other jurisdictions want to figure out what we're doing. And one neighboring to our east actually got the star patch. So that was kind of nice. In here, we have some verbiage and something set out for application for, it currently says licensed contract registration. They're not licensed, they're registered. So this is just them being registered within our system to use the iWorks portal to pull permits. Just again, clearing stuff up, clarifying it. We'll jump down. Payments, basic stuff. Right here is, again, revocation of phone-in privileges, which we don't do phone-in. Everything's via the portal. Just removing a lot of stuff. You'll notice that you're going to see this section. I have it multiple times. It's in the building code, the electrical code, the plumbing code. It's just a standard statement. That way, every time the state adopts the new code cycle, we don't have to then revise our municipal code. It's just saying that we will follow the most current.
Adopted by the state.
Yeah, adopted by the state. And then through here are just some different changes. This was addressing or specifically talking to the addressing that Victor and Sean were talking about. That way our addressing is consistent throughout. Just kind of making sure that our municipal code speaks to itself. Some of these items, 502, where the 319, it speaks of the building official's position as an appointed position. Obviously, I'm not appointed, so that was removed. Then again, here is this standard nomenclature for adopting the mechanical code, the fuel gas code. And here was something also, currently the state is working on identifying basically a new definition of ag buildings. So I wanted to basically just be in line with that. That way we don't have our own code. We're just referring to what the state adopts. And then heat detectors, we did add, this is just speaking with Kitty and a couple of the different manufacturers. This is one of their requirements. Whenever there's a ceiling plane difference, so let's say you have a standard car garage and then an RV garage, it suggests that you have one per ceiling plane. Or when there's, let's say you have what's called a drop beam in the middle of your ceiling. So you want one on either side. That way, just like smoke, they don't want the heat to collect in one area where the heat detector isn't. They want it to just to be safer. And just to go back to, I think it's
So just real quick, that's just in the garage then?
correct, only in the garage. And we've had literally no pushback whatsoever in regard to heat detectors. BCA welcomed it with open arms.
I think other jurisdictions are starting to do this now.
Well, what's interesting is they didn't realize that the state didn't adopt it, and they're requiring it even though they don't have it in their codes. But right now, it's just us and Mountain Home. And but we have, let's see, all of Lennar, all of Toll Brothers. A lot of the builders are doing it carte blanche in all their houses now. So inadvertently, we're making the entire state safer. Okay, then here the electrical code. You'll see right here, I struck out quite a bit of these notes here. This is all something that was adopted almost 10 years ago when us as a city had multiple different changes to the electrical code that we didn't want to have. But now we're on the most current adopted section of the NEC. So we're just going to go with what the state requires. Let's see. And
You
then,
talk to Shane and everybody on that?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
good there?
yeah, definitely. What it was is, I guess, prior to Shane, Shane Vigil, there was another inspector that had some different proclivities, didn't want Romex in any of our commercial buildings. He was above code, which not a bad thing, but at this point, it's not necessary.
Yep.
And there was a period of time, this goes back to this time frame you're talking about years ago, where a lot of the cities weren't actually just adopting automatically the new codes, because the International Building Code often had put stuff in and the cities like, we're not doing that. It's too much. It's more than we need to do. And so it was very common in city codes, and you can see this refers back to 2009, the stricken paragraph, that it was the cities were like, look, we're okay with the current code, but we'll wait. So it was always like you almost lagged, every 4 years, some new code revision. So that's where a lot of this stuff came from. And but again, it was common through a lot of cities around the state, because sometimes that international code just went so much farther than what we wanted to do. So if we're okay with always adopting the current code, which is totally fine, then I think it makes sense to get rid of all this. My understanding is the cities always have the ability, no matter what code is there, to say we're going to, on our own, exempt it because the city governs. So we can adopt the main code, but you can adopt it and then put your own exceptions into it and say this is what it's going to be here in the town. So if in the future there's something that the city is not comfortable with that happens to come from the International Building Code, you still have some ability to have some carve outs.
So do you see any need for any of that carve out stuff for Shane?
No. In talking to Shane, he likes the new the 2021 codes that have been adopted.
And those are adopted by the state too, right?
Yes.
First, and then we follow what the state's adopted then. Okay.
And for our contract inspectors, they inspect in multiple jurisdictions. They prefer consistency, obviously. So that's one of the nice things about it is gaining consistency throughout the valley. It's better for the contractors, better for us.
Mayor Chadwick, Councilman.
So I brought this up a little while ago, had a conversation with Kevin and Sean, but something I'd like for us to consider again, maybe now at this point in time, but, and this came from personal experience. My water heater's in the garage, like a lot of them are. The water heater fails, drain pan fails, water then just creeped into my house and happened to be, pretty damaging. So my thought is we've got, these codes in place that are supposed to help prevent stuff like that from happening. But because my subfloor of the main house extends out into the garage and these utilities are placed on that, it actually doesn't help. Like the intended purpose of it failed. So I'd like to see us think of a solution. And I know that these utilities need access down through the subfloor into crawl space for, stuff like that. But what can be done to mitigate a scenario like that so that we can start building our houses and protect property a little bit better?
Slab on grade.
Quiet time.
So I think that'd be an exception to the international code, like something we could do to improve things.
Okay.
Is there some kind of a barrier that you can put between that floor and the floor of the house? You know what I mean? Some kind of an interior drain that goes to the crawl space. What's that look like? Is that a thing, or can we make it a thing?
Most, if not all, these homes will have a drain on the mechanical platform, and which is for the overflow for the furnace as well as well, I guess the water heater drain normally goes out onto the
garage
surface.
floor.
And
It
that's
has to
the
get, it
thing.
has to get off that subfloor first, though. So the
Yeah.
problem is the connecting subfloor.
Yeah, and that is the problem, is I think they have safety features in place, meaning the pan, but when that fails, I mean, and that's where we got to figure out where we want to, what we want to, add to the code that would be, I guess, not over restrictive, but it's got to be, we got to figure out what common sense fixes we can add to it or require, I guess, at this point.
Will you investigate that?
Yeah,
Get
definitely.
back to.
We have some good plumbers that we could talk to also and just kind of see what their perspective is.
And it could be like in the case of water, that it doesn't need to be on the subfloor, right? I think it's just there for convenience. It's really the HVAC that needs that crawl space access.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's a number of things we could look at probably.
Battery-operated water detector.
Just get flex sealant.
Cold showers.
I was gonna say, there's this
No
commercial where this guy's driving a boat and there's a hole in the boat and then he gets his paintbrush out. Just a coat of Flex Seal. would
Talk on your
work.
phone. Yeah,
Mayor,
sir.
Kevin.
Green light's good.
Anyway,
Bueller?
go. So you've probably seen a lot of homes in regard to the water heater where there's the drain system comes off, the overflow comes off.
Yeah.
And then there's an actual drain that's in the garage floor with
Yeah.
a flange, it's almost looks
It's
like
a
a toilet flange.
It is a toilet flange.
Yeah, and then this goes down into
Back to the sewer system.
goes back into the sewer system and so, yeah, we had that here in one of our houses. So this one doesn't have that, but I mean, that kind of alleviates that. Like right now, if the water heater were to fail, for me, it would just flood the garage, right?
Yeah.
For Kevin, I guess it probably floods his crawl space or goes back into his house, but
Goes into the house right under my stairs.
oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you don't know it. And
So is there a way to like make it a code for to have some type of drainage that goes into the sewer system and alleviate that problem?
We could do that. I do know that they want the drain to be readily visible. That way, because what that drain really is for is your TMP valve on the side. That way, when your temperature pressure gets above the proper temperature pressure, it will actually drain into that pan and then drain out. That way, because the thing is, the most dangerous thing in your home is your water heater. It's a pressure bomb waiting to happen.
Right.
So that's what that valve is there for. That way, because otherwise, if it does drain into that drain, the sewer drain, you'll never know that there's an issue. And then we could have a much larger problem. But I mean, we definitely probably should meet on this separately and
I
Yeah.
think you need to talk about it, and I think you need to talk with sewer and
Yeah.
water to see if that's something that they're going to allow in these garages to have a separate drain with all the oils and stuff like that going into the system.
potentially, yeah.
I mean, it's just basically water. I mean, and that PVC pipe can be cut 4 inches short so you can see it if it's
You can
leaking.
See it or hear it, yeah.
Yeah.
So your scenario is your water heater leaked and then it didn't come out of the pan. Pan was blocked and then it seeped back. Is that what happened?
Whoever installed the pan, because the pan has an outlet, they put the gasket on the wrong side.
So it just leaked out onto the.
So it just leaked out onto the subfloor. Yeah.
And I've seen it multiple times where that pan, as they put the water heater on it, they cut a hole in the pan and you don't notice it. until-
Right. The pan's it's almost a gimmick, right? So I think the easiest thing is just pull the water heater off of that elevated subfloor and just lower it a little bit. You could still have it elevated off the garage with concrete, but another thing I thought of is just a tiled basin, something that like your shower that's got a membrane. And so you could put that on the subfloor, kind of up around it, construct it. That'd be probably low cost, $150 addition. But something to capture that water and truly, keep it out of the house. Force it back to the garage. Yeah.
Again, good questions, a good challenge for us to talk to our contractors and the BCA and see what. Yeah,
Well,
so,
and Mayor,
Yep.
I think the one thing too we have to think about on doing that is we have to look at the code and say, is this for new construction only, or is this for retrofit? So like I don't have room in my house right now. I could add anything to my water heater. There is zero room the way they shoved them together. And so if we make that something that, we have to do that every time we change out a water heater, we could be causing a pretty big issue. So we need to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, probably just moving forward with new
Mhm.
construction. 'Cause otherwise you're.
So,
getting
Yeah,
worms.
he's got all this information now, so you can go and give us the best scenario with all that, right?
did some research to see what I could find, and yeah, see, I mean, this is obviously the problem that's probably happened around the country, and let's see what we come up with. See if we can, make it and clearly identify it as a code possibly, and hopefully alleviate issues.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll keep going.
Make
A couple little bit
might not
of
be-
clerical errors here, minor stuff. And the definitions, I wanted to remove this definition of the dwelling unit and actually have it the same as we have it in the UDC in a different section of the code, just to create uniformity. And then we'll change this secondary dwelling to accessory dwelling unit. Sounds like, but
Yep.
just to have that defined.
Consistent with my.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, Mayor, sorry. When we say that the definition is for living facilities for one family. So if I have two families living in my home, I'm not a dwelling or dwelling unit.
It should be single family unit, right? Is that what you're saying or what? Is this taken out of our other
This
codes
is out
like
of the-
this?
Or other code says that
This is what design code.
it's one family.
Yeah, for one family.
Is the intent to limit it to one family?
I don't think that's it.
But this has been a question across the nation about defined family. Maybe we need to remove that as well, or just go out of the definition of the building code.
Well, I think you guys can work on that and bring it back when
Yeah.
we bring it. I mean, we don't have to define it tonight. Okay.
Mayor Chadwick?
Yep.
Can we scroll up to where we talk about the codes?
Sure, which one?
That one right there is fine, because they all read the same. So it says, a copy of this will be on file with the city clerk's office. They all say that, but we don't have a physical copy in the city clerk's office. So in my mind, it would just be easier to say a copy of this will be in the building department where these code books live. Or else we have to buy another set to have up, another set to have up in the clerk's office that are just going to sit there.
Does she, being the custodial records, required to have that up there? For these codes, or can they live in the building department? Also,
Yeah, the documents can be. Right. Yeah, the goal for public records, I mean, Shelley's the city clerk is the city's records manager. And so any public records request typically, I mean, officially goes through her. Doesn't mean that every department, I mean, you think of really large cities, they don't have like a single room where every document from the city is housed, right? Yes, I mean, think of like city of Los Angeles. I mean, they don't have some gigantic
they don't
building.
build anything anyway, they just let it rot.
Well, and then burn down and not rebuild up.
I'm sorry, that was my loud voice.
Inside.
So yeah, it could be, I mean, the building department can maintain its records there, the planning department can maintain its records. The police, if you had a police department or you have one, but
Okay.
they can maintain their records in their department. That's all fine. The key is just to make sure that they're always secure. And they aren't susceptible to somebody tampering with them or having improper access to them or something like that, especially personnel records that need to be confidential and others. But they don't have to be all in one place. But ultimately, Shelley is the records custodian. And so, at the end of the day, she's the one that's responsible.
So in this case, we're talking about international code,
Mhm.
correct? The international code books. So are those, because we're referencing that we refer to them and use them, that makes them a city record? Is that what we're saying?
Right. And it doesn't have to be on file in the office of city clerk. It just could say it's on file at City Hall.
As long as I could find a copy.
Yeah,
Get my
because if
hands on
somebody
a
comes in and says, hey, I want to see a copy. The purpose of this, and this is kind of archaic language, it's the same thing with like the Idaho Code and other things. Back in the day when you could never get this stuff online, and I don't know how easy it is to get the fire code online. Some of it they keep behind paywalls and different stuff, but okay, yeah, because it used to be, like I say, back in the day, if you wanted to read the code, you actually had to come to the city and read the code. And so that's where some of this language comes from, is that you could just kind of reference it, but there was actually a state law that required that you always had to have a copy of the code at City Hall so somebody could access it. I don't think it's necessarily mandated now, but to the extent that we have to have a binder, I'm not sure how big the fire code is, but they're often a binder or two for building codes, fire codes, that kind of stuff. We need to have it someplace where it's accessible if somebody wanted to come in and review it.
And again, the only reason is because every one of our codes says that. And so I just wanted to, do we need to buy her a full set, or we already have the sets that we have?
Yeah, and the reality is you probably, this is up to Victor and Chief Tominski, but we could even say a copy is available at the fire station. Or the fire district offices or something like that. If I don't know where it should be, but we can just designate where it is. And
Can you have those, Kevin, everything down there? I think you just change everything.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. If we already have a full set in the building department,
Say it's on file and readily accessible to the public.
Yeah, so I would just say a copy of which is on file at City Hall.
City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can move it wherever we want
Okay.
weekly.
Anything else are you done, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Kevin?
Steph?
All right. We'll move on to
Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add before we,
Jennifer.
you want to take a break, a quick potty break? It's been 2 hours.
Okay. Quick 5-minute break. Well, then she opened another drink.
Oh, adjourn?
We can just recess.
Good. Okay. It's 8:23. We're going to continue our council workshop and we're going to move on to Jennifer's proposal.
Don't give up on me yet. Okay, I hopefully you all saw my email that had my recommendation. It is for a 25-foot front garage setback. And so currently I've noticed that we have like larger vehicles, trucks and stuff in some of our denser neighborhoods. They are hanging out onto the sidewalks. And so I did a little research seeing what others do too. And then like with our larger vehicles that are more standard or more common now, I would recommend that we increase that setback. So I also included where the code would need to change. If you go down, there's just a couple sections that we would need to add a couple of definitions, adding a garage face definition in the back of sidewalk. there's no confusion. For those, for the back of sidewalk, it's not the straight edge. And then we'd have to revise the table 3A4, recommending it for R2 and greater to 25 feet. Then there's a note for Sean. Let's see. And then in 8.4B2A, a new provision that says in residential zones where a garage faces a public street and the driveway is used for required off-street parking. Again, it's just saying that, that minimum is 25 feet. And then I would also like to add a note in 4B-3B that says that home occupation shall comply with the off-street parking requirements. And we have that in a special, like in our, I can't remember what you call it, but specific for home occupations, they have to comply. But just to reinforce that. So that's all I have.
Okay, and then this would apply on new plats. Can't apply it to
Right. Yes.
current plats with,
Yep. Only
that
for
a-
new.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
so you talked about the face of the garage to the public street,
Yep.
back of curb.
Back of sidewalk. Yep.
Let's talk about townhomes that are private streets. Do we apply that same standard in the private rear-facing alley
Yeah, alleyway.
that now is gonna have the same problem? We can
So-
do that. I think it shouldn't be only public streets if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, the
Private streets as
for
well.
this is specifically for public, at like crossings and public areas, like the sidewalk. And so not thinking about an alleyway so much because with that, sometimes those are private. But Sean, what do you think?
I don't know, alleys a little different, because alleys you can either do a 3-foot or a 20-foot. And the 3-foot is to prevent someone from parking there at
From
all,
parking there.
or a 20-foot if they're going to use it as a driveway.
But this is
Eh.
intended, I think the intent is to prevent people from parking over sidewalks.
Sidewalks, yeah.
Yep.
And in our alleyways, we don't have the sidewalk thing, it's
Yeah.
just a drive aisle.
But they're using it as a sidewalk.
Well, it's a drive aisle.
Yeah, it's a drive aisle.
Is there an issue
Yeah.
where a large truck on a 20-foot driveway extends too far out into the drive aisle and makes it hard for somebody to get past it?
That's what
My truck is 23 feet long.
So I will tell you,
Correct.
Yeah.
Sean and I went out and checked this out today with the city truck. And you can definitely see where you're parked up there and you're right there. You have, especially if you have a ball on or something, you're still overhanging into the sidewalk. On a 25-foot one, which was right there, right next door, right? They had a 3-car. One was 20, that was 25. There was plenty of room for us to park. Now in an alleyway, I don't know.
So,
In an alleyway, even though you don't have the sidewalk concern, that truck sticks out into the drive aisle. Yeah, but it's not going to get a crane through there.
So, so
Or a fire truck.
Chief Victor, what is the requirement for an alleyway drive right now?
It is the discretion of the fire district, sir.
25 feet?
Yeah. So we start for alleyways, we'll start looking at 20 to start. But with that, have an understanding is we start restricting parking, right? So we can go from 20, no parking on both sides. We go 26, we can then say, no parking on one side, parking on the other.
So if it was like he's talking, like an alleyway with garages facing each other, you would have a 20-foot alleyway plus a 20-foot parking on each
Yeah,
side?
so we kind of look at, was it the townhome First Street? Was it First Street that we did? Where we have our alleyway that goes through and then they have their garages. And I don't think at
We
that
did
point,
3, I think.
I want to say I've seen it in a couple ways where you just have a driveway and your garage and you pull in your garage and there's no parking exterior, which is then a responsibility of the HOA to police, right?
Yeah.
But we would just look at that clearance. We want to maintain the minimum 20 feet of drivable surface.
I think alleyways just need to be looked at on a on-case basis more than anything. Can't define that because I think public and private streets, like he's talking about, because if you have private streets like in the Hunters Project over there, then are we saying that the sidewalks don't matter in there? Right? Does that make sense?
But I also think, what I'm really picturing is trying to prevent what's happening over by where Dutch Brothers is, right? That older portion where you pull in a Prius and you're still in the way, right? Like a smart car is still in the halfway of the
Well,
road.
Stonecrest, they did not build them correctly. They're 15-foot driveways. That's why the Prius is hanging out into the sidewalk.
With the promise that they would put more parking at the end if they needed it.
Nope, with the promise that no one caught that they didn't meet the
They
setback.
told us they would do in
No,
the
no,
city.
no, he's talking about the houses, not
The houses.
The
The
driveway.
business is different. Yeah.
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 These are the original houses is what she was talking about.
Yeah. No, you're both are right, but same project, different thing.
So one thought we had was, and when we found a scenario where one of the bays was recessed another 5 feet. So that gave you your 25 foot on one of your parking stalls to park a big truck over 25 foot and make 25 feet work within the confines of the driveway. But then the other two, I guess so it was a 3-car garage. The one bay was 25 and then it was offset. And then the 20 was the other 2 bays. It would allow for a truck to park.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Sampson, hey, so you just kind of touched on it. So the 25 feet, like, I'll just use my home for an example. And we have 3-car garage, but we have 2 garage doors. One sticks out towards the street, probably 2.5 feet on the single car side. So would the 25 feet be from the door that's closest to the street or the door that's furthest from the street?
Well, I think the way that it's written now is it's the entire garage face. Yes.
Yes. The garage face is offset.
Right.
By-
It would,
by
It's the
two-
clo- it'd be the
by 3
closest.
feet.
It'd be the
Closest to the street.
Closest to the street.
yeah.
So that's,
So the
yeah, so that would
minimum is
be
25.
that'd
And
be
so the recessed one would be
even more.
28.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to.
You know, I'm talking through this scenario with Sean today. The only thing that you're going to see most likely is smaller backyards by 5 feet.
Yeah.
Because most of these houses are already designed in a way to do the 20 foot. And if we go on new subdivisions that are 25 feet, it's going to shift them back.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's a trade-off. That.
So, Mr. Mayor, on that same thought, one of the things, if we don't have, if a lot of our subdivisions, we push those houses right up against the setback, the rear setback. So adding another 5 feet may make it impossible in the code for them to have a covered patio. Meaning the post would now have to intrude upon the setback. And so it may be something that we're looking at. If we got certain lot sizes, we have to kind of consider. The other thing around that too is that we're to the point, and I love it. I think we should. I'm the same way, Kevin. I mean, your trucks, they hang off and you're walking with the kids and you hit that, Idaho knee knocker. And
And
This is an
it's a-
anti-stack and pack measure.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's gonna
100%.
be-
I love it.
And it's.
no, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to consider though is the bulk of our subdivisions are approved. So a lot of what we're going to be looking at is infill. Do we have room to accommodate that on the infill projects?
Well, but we also have several big ones in Canyon County that are yet to be heard that would have to follow the new code.
No, I get that.
So there's a lot that can still be done. There is a lot of the new stuff that won't
Right.
be doing it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of space north.
Well, right. Anywhere that the development's going to go in the future,
Right.
it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't think we're done.
Yeah, but right now our north are larger, lower densities, and so you're not going to have any problem. If there are one, in R1, I think R2,
30 feet, right?
R1's 30 feet already for the front, so that would
Yep.
take care of that.
So Any concerns, Chris?
Not a concern, just a question. Does this impact the setback for the rest of the house?
No, we'd still allow that up to 15 feet for the livable
So there's
space.
gonna be-
We're just talking the garage and the
So
driveway.
if they want the house at 15 feet, we're gonna have a 10.
Mhm.
So just forces them to redesign their houses if they want to
So,
make it fit.
so one question I had was when, like the garage, it's a turning one. So you pull in straight and then you turn to enter. So that's not front facing. And so therefore, I mean, I don't think that this, you know, it
As
still.
long as you can fit, in this
Yeah,
case would be
that's-
25 feet in front of that garage.
Yeah.
So it's not sticking. The intent is not for a vehicle not to stick out into the
Right.
sidewalk.
Right.
Now, now that being said, we also talked about, Chris, we could put something in our code that prohibits vehicles from overhanging the sidewalk, right? Any vehicle in any house, right? Correct?
It's already in the code. It's a law.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
is it?
ADA.
It's already a law. The cops can come and write a ticket at any time.
Okay. So if it's sitting,
So
But if you can fix that problem so you don't have a traffic enforcement.
I'm talking about
Current?
the currents,
so would
Yes.
that be, they need to park on the street?
or don't buy a big truck. You know, if you don't have a vehicle.
But the challenge you have there is you have some HOAs that try to limit people from parking on the street.
100%.
Right.
And maybe we say that you,
But-
well, you can anyway.
They
the
can't.
public streets.
That's, yeah.
Well, they actually
But it
is.
ultimately, I mean, it is a problem,
It is.
right?
What's
So-
that?
Chris.
Yes.
Just in general.
Yes, it is a problem.
Yeah. And so if it's no
Chris.
parking on the street, if it's no parking on in the drive, I mean, somewhere you gotta like decide, like, it's, they're breaking the law.
Now, like if you drive into Hidden Brook or Waterview or Rockbridge, just pick one. There's houses where people have a truck, but their driveway is only 6 feet deep. And so they pull up into the driveway, into their front yard, back
Nice.
up, and now they're perpendicular to their garage door just so they can be on their driveway and not in the street. I think moving forward, it's a great idea.
Think that, overall it's a huge challenge because then everybody has this big pickup. Then I build my ADU and 2 more people live and now I have 2 more longer pickups. It's just a constant Lego, right? Of where we're going to go.
And that is why I also put in that home occupation piece, just as a reminder, like, I don't know, if you're gonna put in a home business, there's parking requirements too, so,
We require that you have to have on-site parking
Yep.
for
right.
ADUs and for home occupancy.
And, yeah,
My property's negotiable for sale. If you're interested, I've got plenty of parking.
As far as the parking on a public street, they cannot, HOA cannot require you or prohibit you from parking on a public street. Now, private streets, that's something we could look at, that if private street, they could definitely restrict that. So I think you definitely would want to have the ability to park on.
You have
straight
to be
there.
careful saying that the HOA can't regulate that. Because the HOA can regulate that.
It's not
If the
enforceable.
if the HOA has enforcement provisions within their CCNRs, they absolutely can enforce it.
It's a contract thing. It's not a city enforcement.
They try to force me to park my truck in
Garage.
the garage, the storage area. And I'm like, BS, and ACHD was like, they can't enforce that. That's a public street.
Yeah, the only way they can do it is by, there's a lot of stuff that's obviously allowed by city code. Or state laws, but and homeowner associations are more strict. And so in theory, they could try to do some kind of, it's even like shoveling snow and different stuff. I mean, they can put stuff in their CCNRs and try to enforce it as a contract, right? But they don't have any ability, because it's like, well, it's still a public road. And usually the only way you can enforce it is actually against a homeowner, not even against visitors or anybody else, because, you know, they didn't sign anything. But it's difficult. And, you know, and if there's someone's going to fight it, but you see it in a lot of CCNRs where they try to restrict, you know, kind of that on-street parking. A lot of, especially the ones back in the day, because Joanne Butler wrote them all. And so it was in all of them.
So we're all good with that one?
All right, and then this one I didn't send out, but I in your code, can we talk about it and then maybe we'll see what happens. So in the current code, in the usable open space section, we currently include. Let's see. Let me go in here so I'll read it out loud here. All right, so our standard for open space, qualified usable open space. So we have one line that I struggle with, and it is that the buffer area along a collector and arterial streets may be included in required overall common open space for residential subdivisions. And so this is underneath how qualified usable open space is determined. So I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So the buffer space, so the buffer area along the collector and arterial roads, that is being calculated into the usable open space area.
The overall open space.
Overall area.
15%. The usable open space, you cannot include buffers other than the 8-foot landscape strip on a detached street or the detached sidewalk.
Okay, so,
It's qualified open space and then usable open space.
okay.
It's
We have
total open space and usable open space.
qualified usable. open
Yeah.
Qualified usable space. Okay, so it's not going qualified usable. It just doesn't, maybe it's just, maybe it needs to be pulled out and put under the common open space then instead of usable area open space. So if you would just take a look at that and maybe we can talk about it offline so I understand it better. I just don't want to I want to make sure that it's not being calculated in the usable open space.
That's not how we don't calculate that way.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
So if that's our intent, we'll just make sure that it
it's
reads that way.
verified.
'Cause it sounds like you're
Yes.
yeah, okay. And
Thank you.
a lot of times that happens. You look at it like, that's not.
Right. And then, okay, so then that takes me to the Parkway one. So a minimum 8-foot. That one, it does count for common open space. And that's the same thing as what you're saying as the,
Calculated as usable open space.
okay,
Yes.
100% of it.
Why?
It's just how we've done it.
And so.
Because it's
down-
usable. I mean, people can, I mean, it's actually a parkway, it's a pathway.
Yeah.
It's actually something that's used as,
Sidewalk.
But in between driveways also, right? So, I mean, you got the road, you have this parkway.
well, a parkway is a minimum of 8 feet in width from street curb to edge of sidewalk. So I don't know how many homes have 8 feet between the sidewalk and the curb with nothing there. I don't think this is just a landscape strip
Tree.
in front of houses on a just separated sidewalk.
That's all.
think that's what it
That's
is,
all it
right?
is. Yeah. It's the 8-foot.
That is what it
landscape
is.
Strip in between the sidewalk and the street.
8 feet, but normally
8
a
feet.
normal house doesn't have 8 feet, right? Or do they?
Of what?
Our minimum
On a
is,
separated sidewalk in a normal subdivision, is it 8 feet of
That
grass?
sidewalk.
Yes. It's 8 foot. It's 8 foot's what,
8 foot in
8
front
foot
of houses
what
everywhere.
HD requires. Yes.
Everywhere.
Okay.
Or 7 in Inspirato.
so to me, that's not really, everybody uses that space. And like we have visual natural space, including open ditches, wetlands, etc. That can apply to open space, only 20%, right? So I was wondering, maybe if we were to say can apply for, 30%.
I would just say.
Or
get
take
rid
it
of that.
out.
I don't want to, yeah. If, I mean, the reason we originally had it was for incentive for people to do detached sidewalks
Yeah.
before we required detached sidewalks.
Oh.
So that's why we had it as calculated as usable open space.
Okay.
We just never
And
changed
so
it.
now we've moved past that then.
Yeah, now it's
So
required. So if you guys
required.
want to take it out, just take it out and we'll
Let's
just,
take it
we'll
out.
exclude it from usable open space.
Yeah. And then that space goes into a, you know.
It just goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to come up with it somewhere.
Right, right.
That's the easiest way to do it. But I don't want,
Okay.
I don't think we should do like a 30% or
Okay.
that's just,
Well, I want to talk about this just for a
Okay.
minute. I think of it as usable open space because it's creating a safer use of your sidewalk
Yeah.
by moving you away from your roadway. So just because you're not out there running on the grass and playing on it doesn't mean it's not usable. I'm just trying to play the other side because I when I think about it that way, I'm like,
So you're saying it's a improved
It's a-
pathway.
it improves the safety of your path and your sidewalk and without it,
plus it's providing
Well,
street trees
then-
and it's providing shade and it's providing a
Right.
visual amenity, a aesthetic amenity.
I know what you're saying. I'm not discounting
Yeah.
what you're saying. I'm
So
just like,
I'll-
let's
I'll
think
go-
this through before we just cut it out.
Yeah, I mean, do we feel like we're not getting enough open space in subdivisions, I guess, is the main question.
sometimes I do.
What?
So that's why I bring it up. Sometimes I do feel like we are on the low end of the usable open space.
Yeah.
And, you know, in our comp plan, that is one of our goals, is to have more usable open space, and this would help.
We never
there.
see, I don't even think we even calculated because we always have so much open space in the large subdivisions. It's really the infill ones. It's like the maiden firs and the small ones where they're struggling to get the open space because it's just so small. But the large subdivisions, I mean, Corey's Terra, you had 30% open space.
There's a wide divide between the haves and the have-nots in open space.
Yes, sir. Chris.
And maybe the city needs to have a conversation on how to define usable
Right.
and then figure out what they want from there.
What
Well,
does
we
that
have a
mean?
definition
Yeah,
and
we
we
I understand.
we
but it
list.
sounds like there may be some discussion about whether or not that's an appropriate definition
Yeah.
or not. Because I'm not concerned with how the city's handling it. And legally, you can define it however you want. Because there's passive open space, there's usable open space. I mean, well, I guess active and passive can both be usable because we allow floodplain and, grasslands and all that kind of stuff to be usable open space. I just think the city maybe needs to have a conversation. If they don't want to
Yeah.
include the separated sidewalk space as open space,
Yeah.
it's fine. You can just put that in your definition, but maybe define what usable actually means. Because I think people have a different definition. The reality is, I think to the mayor's point, is separated sidewalks are usable because people walk and ride their bikes and and other things on the sidewalk. They're using it. It may not be the person in the house that's coming out and having a picnic in their front yard in the area in the landscape strip between the sidewalk and the road, but people are walking along there and it gets used. Obviously, when you've got a 10-acre park or even a 2-acre park where kids are out there running around, throwing a ball, doing whatever they do, dogs are running, you can actually see it being used. It's easier to recognize as that's actual usable space. But anyway, there may just need to be a conversation about what the city really wants usable space to be, and then decide how to make that work. And especially if you've already got an 8-foot landscape strip that's required by code, you may rethink how you're doing the rest of your open space calculations, and those don't count. But maybe you adjust some of the other things you're looking at.
This circles back to the conversation of, okay, you've offset the sidewalk 8 feet. Now is the garage 25 feet off of the sidewalk?
We're always measuring from the face of the sidewalk, always.
Now
Back
that
of sidewalk.
sidewalk is centered of that sidewalk,
No, it'll be from the back of the
Never-
curb of the
never
sidewalk.
Measure it from
Back of the
the
sidewalk.
right, from
Back of the
end
sidewalk.
Side.
Back of the sidewalk.
Like-
That way your
that same pickup is still sticking across the sidewalk.
driveway is what it is. It's exclusive of the sidewalk.
Yeah, so your front garage face, if you have
So
how big are your sidewalk? 6 feet?
Now you're
5 feet.
32 feet off of the
So you've got 8 feet
33
landscape
off of
strip.
the road.
5 feet of a sidewalk, 25 feet to the garage. So your garage face is now going to be 38 feet from back of curb.
Yeah.
And 4
Under the
feet,
code
4
provision.
feet off of your back fence.
Yeah, maybe.
A smaller house and a big truck that way.
Yep.
Yeah, for the current.
Yeah, one or the other,
subdivisions-
big truck, small house.
And that's why this could only really apply to new developments, because
Mhm.
if you've got, lots that are 100 feet deep or 110 feet deep or somewhere in there, I mean, this extra 5 feet is meaningful. So this is really a design thing that, developers and engineers are going to have to figure out to still make sure they can do what they need to make sure you've got a sufficient size building pad, to have covered patios and all those things. So it's, it's kind of it's a new project function.
So I guess, can we just can we just think about it? And then we'll, at our next workshop, maybe I can present some recommendation and then discuss it some more.
You want to just give me
Yep,
what your
like what I
thoughts are?
did
We'll
with that.
bring it back to the council at the public hearing and we can.
Chadwick.
Yes, sir.
I just want to share a thought on this topic. And Chris, you kind of started hitting on that, the open space that we enjoy. As I drive through town and drive through neighborhoods and stuff, I don't see a lot of people using the open space in the subdivisions. And so to me, it's not like we're lacking that amount of space. But I do see a lack of is open space that's done in a way that visually it separates me from density and it separates me from whatever I may want to be separated from. Like the feeling of being in open space is maybe harder to come by. And so as I think about this and think about the 8-foot separation with the sidewalk, to me that's one of those visual open space things that it's really important and appealing to be used in a design and an architecture sense. And I think that it does warrant a discussion about how we're classifying open space. But to me, that sort of open space is more valuable and more usable than, say, a park with a playground that sits vacant and is, hidden back behind stuff. So just those are my thoughts. And I really welcome this conversation and what we all come up with here.
Well, and then maybe you put better design stand. If you want to use it, your trees have to be a certain caliber, or whatever in there versus the smaller things.
More trees, more bushes, more
Why
rods.
don't we go?
I-
But if
you really want to get me started on this?
No, I know, but if you go with bigger caliper trees that give you that maturity look now versus 10 years down the road, I mean, there's all sorts of way to make that qualify too. I mean, there's lots of ways to play with that, I think.
Most of the things we've talked about in the last hour have been, how do we build a fence to not see our neighbor? And how do we separate the houses and still have them have a building envelope? We've done a better job, to me, of separating the houses with our 7.5 foot side yard setbacks than some of the cities in our vicinity. And those are just starting to be able to be seen if you keep your eyes open. It's coming, and we're improving what has been approved in the past. So it's my opinion, is everything takes 5 years to show up. If we just be calm, it'll show up and it might get better than it is currently.
Any more surprises?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Just throw that out there.
Thank you.
All good.
Mr. Mayor, though, I want to ask Kevin something just real quick on what he said. So right now on our open space, it's one shade tree or you can sub a shade tree for the equivalent of 2 other non-shade trees per 4,000 square feet in a general open area. So maybe we should look at shrinking that up a little bit.
Would you like me to send for the 4th time my recommendation?
I'd love to see it. Have you sent that?
Yeah.
What is your recommendation?
Last year we had the same conversation and I sent it out again.
About trees? I don't remember. I just remember
Oh,
the
yeah.
plumbing
Oh,
last
yeah.
year.
So,
Every 15 feet.
Oh,
so I actually had a,
Is it 10 now?
no, it's greater than that. So I recommended along arterials that we have a certain width. And I think I recommended between 25 and 30 feet. And I recommended an elevation change. I recommended within a 30-foot length of that and that 20 to 25-foot width that I think it worked out to be almost 30 different trees and bushes with rocks and stuff like that. I mean, just imagine this, rather than focus on the size and the numbers I'm talking about, just drive down Floating Feather and Eagle and think about how our arterials could be designed to be beautiful and architected in a way that as you drive down the road, you're like, wow.
so I guess there's two things then.
So our code is
Arterials are
one tree
different.
per 30 feet. And
That's street trees though, but I'm talking open space, like in the park or like in a general open area within a subdivision. It's one shade tree per 4,000 square feet. So not arterials, not any streets, but just the actual.
okay, I apologize because
No,
we've been talking about 8-foot, street line trees.
no. So, but
Streets.
when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was Central Park and how everybody says that you don't feel like you're in a big city when you're in the Central Park area. So if our parks, if we did, I don't know, I'm just thinking maybe we're at 2,000 square feet and we get some more shade trees in some of those areas.
Most of our parks are built to be sports fields, and that's not a criticism. That's just reality.
No,
right?
absolutely.
But I do think that we lack parks, except for maybe Freedom Park a little bit, because there are some trees in that area. But I do think that we lack park structure that has a lot of shade trees and that sort of, Central Park type feel. I think that would be a huge benefit for our city to contemplate that in some of the future spaces. Yeah, and Morrison, Julia Davis, those type of parks where they still have large open areas for sports, but they're separated and lined by massive trees.
But that scale of 100 years of growth compared to us.
Right, you got to start it though. You got to start it.
Yeah.
Somebody 100 years ago thought of that.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Kevin, you warmed up?
Well, Kevin, we're going to go to yours. We're going to start with the ordinance and comprehensive plan amendment to establish levels of service.
Oh, I have the.
Let's put this one up for me. Huh? Oh, Kevin Wheelock is ready to go. His truck is now started. I can hear it. His truck is calling his name.
Which one do you want? Level service?
Level of service, yeah.
So I
Drive?
I did these summary briefs because the text can be long, but we can go into the text if you want.
You want to drive?
Sure.
Get some more popcorn.
The show's getting started.
Yeah, I'll text you the number and then you can find it.
So, maybe this is, well, I don't know if this one's an easy one or not. My intent in proposing these four things, let me just start there. We have over the years tried to address some of these things and they're not easy topics to address. And so I've taken another stab at it and I'm not married to any of it. I really just want us to have a conversation about can we do some of these things and does it benefit our city? So that's the mindset and the frame by which I want to really approach these things. So the first one being levels of service. We've discussed for years about things like, how do we shape our growth and make sure that we're not overloading our fire department or our police department or, water and sewer and things like that. And we just don't have much that we can go on. So the proposal here is that we make changes to our comprehensive plan to contemplate these things and changes to our code that allow us to establish levels of service by which we can require development to meet or show that it can be met at build out.
So I will say, Kevin, that we do have level of service built in our comprehensive plan for fire and police. That's already there. So that part's already established. You just want to codify that, is what you're saying.
Right.
And when we're talking about sewer and water, I guess, I don't know how it's just capacity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I put in there capacity, pressure. Yeah.
What EDUs are available? Morgan?
And I didn't get specific with that. Like the proposal specifically leaves that open to definition by resolution.
Right. I just want to make sure that we know what we're talking about. If we're going to talk about a level of service.
I mean, when you're talking sewer water, you're either going to have service or you're not. There isn't a level of service that I've ever heard when it comes to sewer and water. It's you either have capacity or you don't have capacity. And if you don't have capacity, then you shouldn't be building.
Well, then that's easy. Put a level of service in for sewer and water.
Yeah.
I think on that one, though, they would let them know on their pre-application meetings that there is no service available at that point, right?
Well,
So-
we would, if not at the pre-application meeting, then at
Well-
least when Sean sends out the letters. Yeah.
Yeah, when you have your meeting with them on a
Yep,
separate
yep.
thing, you would let them know there was a challenge.
All right, so let's talk about levels of service that we do have metrics for then, right?
Yeah.
So,
I just want to make sure that, but we're on the same page on that. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think all you
Yeah,
have to do
absolutely.
is for the comp plan side, and it's kind of just even as you described it here, but it's just the levels of service are going to be determined whether there's sufficient service available. It's really available service for sewer and water more than a level of service. But that's determined by the sewer and water district. And so the city's kind of level of service is whatever they're going to allow. And so if they're going to allow more hookups, then I mean, it's kind of like we do with the streets. If ACHD says the streets can take the cars, then that's what we go by.
Right.
And if sewer and water district says, yeah, we can provide sewer and water service to that project, then that's what we go with. And so I think that some of those we just rely on, the agency that's in charge, the district that's in charge. I think we could still, I think, identify that in our comp plan and our code that's what we're looking for and define that however makes sense for the city. So I don't think you necessarily have to totally ignore it, but I think we can reference it even though the city isn't setting its own standard.
So, yeah, so I guess on police and fire, it's built in there and that's what we keep trying. That's why Chief always brings up where we're at. But on the transportation side is a challenge. Because what ACHD accepts as a level of service is not necessarily what we accept.
right.
Because they accept a level of F as being acceptable. And we're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Can we establish our own level of service with that agency?
Same with the fire, though.
Huh?
What the fire accepts as a
Right. And that,
time
right.
is all relative if you're the guy that needs the service 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, so what this calls for is that we work with those agencies and negotiate with them and determine what that level of service is. And, if my intent is that if ACHD is okay with F, but we want D, then we just have a chat with them and say, look, we're going to do D. This is how we anticipate that it working. You guys okay with that?
Is anything we say going to change whether they care if it's an F or a D?
No.
I don't think so.
We do have conversations with them about road widths, for instance, where the city of Star kind of set its own road width standard. And we told ACHD, this is what it is, so apply it. You might be able to do it. When I'm thinking through the level of service, I'm also thinking about kind of, so an approval that comes down the road or even like impact fees. And so some of those things. I don't know how it affects kind of that bigger picture stuff. So if ACHD is having to, I think it'd be difficult for them to say, okay, we're going to set a level of service and Star at D, and we've got intersections that are currently F. Does that now mean they've got an obligation to spend money to improve the roads to get to the desired level of service? I don't know. And so that's why I think they probably would not just be like, oh yeah, because we could say we want C, right? We want a higher level of service.
Historically, they have just spent money other places if we
Right.
didn't.
And they
plan
still
for
will.
it.
The challenge we have, although, is I think with that is they say that these impact fees help increase level of service, but it's not on the local roads because the impact fees can only be utilized on those arterials and collectors.
Well, right. And they can't, and you can't even use the impact fees to increase the level of service. Because the
No,
impact,
but for growth related, right.
Level of service.
It can maintain.
yeah, maintained, right.
But not-
And so if their accepted level of service is F, they can't use impact fees to bring the level of service up to D. They have to do that out of their general fund tax dollars or other money, right? Grants, bonds, whatever they want to do to get additional money. And the other risk is, sorry, I'll finish, is if they don't change it and the city says, we think it should be this, you have an application that comes in and it's impacting something. You said, well, our level of service in town has to be D. So we're going to require you, you're building right there. We want you to improve the intersection to make it more. And then ACHD sends a letter that says, there are roads, we're fine with them. Then you've got a real conflict. And I think it just opens up the door for potential litigation because someone's saying, well, the entity that owns the road says we're fine. How come you are trying to make us do something that the district, ITD or ACHD isn't going to make us do? So it's difficult, but anyway, I'm done talking until I'm not.
I mean, I think you've highlighted maybe the biggest challenge with doing something like this, but the intent isn't to get ACHD or any other entity to do something different. The intent is you can see on the very last bullet down here, grants the city council authority to deny, defer, or condition approvals when the thresholds are not met. And, this is our community and it's great that ACHD is okay with the level of service F and having our roads totally maxed out. I'm frankly not okay with that. And so I want the ability to shape the growth in our community and even defer that growth until those conditions are met. Yeah.
I think on the roads, though, we're going to have to verify if we legally have the ability to establish a different level of service when our transportation authority says that F is okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's even, Ryan, you probably know this, Morgan. Is there anything lower than F?
No.
I mean,
F is the worst.
Right. But I mean, you can't even go below that, right? So no
Can't even
matter
get an
how-
F minus.
So no, right. So no matter how bad the roads are, they're always going to get at least an F. Is that correct?
Typically, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So right. So that's the challenge, right? There's nothing maybe that ACHD could ever say, because if their standard is F, then any applicant that comes in is going to say, well, it's still going to be F.
You rarely see an app. You rarely see an app. It's usually D. You see anything above D, but you
D and F.
rarely see an app.
Yeah.
Out here, we see Fs.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
feel
That's
Fs,
this is
but
part of the
I don't
challenge
say it.
because we've got to be able to work with the highway district. That's best type of conversation.
Feel
I think
Fs.
what we're talking about, but
And
we need them to write letters that actually support the city's vision. And so I think we can establish the vision in our comp plan. And say this is what it is, but we need to have a separate conversation with the highway district to help them support it so that we can deny applications that come in or whatever.
Here's my only concern. I love the idea of deflecting and denying. My concern is if we say, no, you can't come in because we don't have enough service, but ACHD is fine with it. And now they're an enclave. They're approved as an ACHD, whatever, in the middle of our town. We have no more control, say, or input, and they just start building around us because we
Through the
want a level of service that is higher than the standard.
Either
How do
through
we
the county
adjust that?
or another city.
Yeah, that's the concern is the county could, if they say, oh, F's fine, they just go around us if
So
we
right now,
deny them.
at the-
So I think that's, hold on, I think that's, it is a concern, but I think it's a unique concern because mostly we're dealing with annexed property. And so that they can't just go to the county to get that. And ACHD can't approve buildings. So
Well, they can. So here with the new annexation law, if we say no to them, that opens the door for them to go to the county and get that right at that point now.
even if they're annexed property in the city of Star.
Well, if they're currently annexed, yes, but if it's not annexed, because most of them are
No,
coming in.
that's my point. Usually we're dealing with property that is annexed.
No, we're
No.
dealing with a lot of property that's coming in to be
Yeah, we
annexed.
usually annex.
Right. Yeah, that's what Kevin's
Understood.
point is. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. So
Stuff in city limits is always in city limits. Do you have any county enclaves in city limits?
Yeah, we have some county, we got a lot of county enclaves, but properties, but I guess let's make sure that we're clear. We are still having properties that are coming in that ask to be annexed that are in the county. If we say no to their project, that's saying we're denying your annexation as well with that, meaning that they are not annexed in the city and can go to the county at that point and get that development approved. Or if it's abutting another city, because it's in our area of impact, they can request to go to that other city and get annexed in it that way and still get what they want.
Yeah.
That's the challenges that we're going to face with some of this. I'm not discounting what you're saying. I just, the reality of what we're dealing with every day with these new laws.
See, an ACHD won't give you a level of service unless there's a preliminary plat associated with it.
right. So look,
You
this
have to-
this proposal doesn't take away our ability to make the decision based on those facts. The city council has the authority to approve, deny, condition, or otherwise. Like,
No, I understand that. I'm not discarding that at all. I'm just saying we just got to, we think about all the ramifications of that too on what
Yeah.
we're trying to do.
get that. And my only response to that is this doesn't change any of that. Right. We still have all the same options we've always had. And I think a really important part of this is that the proposal requires that we sit down with these agencies and have an agreement. So we work some of these things out.
So we
Like,
do,
This isn't just a hard line in the sand, Stars being a rebellious city. Like this is really trying to, I've spent 6 years putting thought into this. I've spent almost 10 years putting thought into some of these others. And a lot of time trying to think about how these things can help us out. So none of these things that I'm bringing forward tonight, I think, are going to be easy.
And I think that I think identifying specific levels of service is a great idea. I think it gives the city specific standards that you can apply to applications as they come in. The only caveat to all that is just the city then just needs to have the, I don't know if courage is the right word, but have the discipline to say, okay, you're not meeting it. So therefore we're going to deny, defer a condition until it can be met. Because too often cities say, well, yeah, you may not be there, but we're going to go ahead and prove it anyway because something might happen 5 years from now and we might get there. And so you end up with, overdevelopment and sometimes it's because you don't have specific standards. So I think this direction will give you the ability to apply specific standards to a project and then make that decision on whether or not, again, for a condition, when those standards are met. And I think that's important and predictable for applicants too, because they know it's in here. And as soon as you start denying or deferring a couple projects, they're all going to get the message and understand either they've got to help improve the system to get the level of service where it is, or it's going to slow down.
To that point, I think one of the things this does is it shifts these conversations way earlier than the public hearing. Like that, it gives you guys at City Hall the ability to have these conversations earlier. And it drives a different conversation with the applicant and ACHD or with the fire department, for example.
so I just want to make sure everybody's clear. I yearly have meetings with all the agencies and talk about this and see where they're at. Right. Victor is now, since we've established that level of service, Victor is also putting in there in his reports how fast he can get to these places based on station locations and staffing. So it's up to you guys at that point to take a look at that and say yes or no. Do I want to accept that based on what's happening? We know where the police is because we have those standards established. We know where sewer and water is because they have that. It's just ACHD's the challenge because I'm still not convinced that, and we can work through that and we'll work through this. I'm not saying we won't. But we got to figure out how this is going to work with ACHD. I still trying to figure out the Highway District 4 side of this on here because that's a whole nother animal we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with funding issues from the state on that as well. So there's a lot of, I think this is a good thing. I don't know if it's ready to happen yet until we get some of these things figured out. Because we got to establish, if we're going to establish a level of service, we got to know what that is.
So the thing that this ordinance doesn't do is establish any level of service immediately. So it gives us time, like if we were able to adopt it now, then we have time, really an infinite amount of time to figure out what those LOSs are. One of the things that it does do immediately, because not every mayor is the same type of mayor you are, Mayor Chadwick, it does codify, or it can let us codify the fire and the police stuff rather than just having it in our comprehensive plan. And so that then we can perpetuate that and get those things in there. It may be that we never work it out with ACHD to have a level of service that we adopt by resolution.
And I want to go back and clarify my statement about level of F. There's actually a unwritten level of G that you will see every now and again. ACHD won't ever see that because they will require you to put turn lanes in or stoplights or whatever to get you to that. And that's part of their conditions that they always send to us to get you to that level of F. But there is a level of G that is not official, but often used to show that, yeah, this isn't going to happen. But ACHD won't ever publish anything like that because they say you have to put in turn lanes to get you to a level of F is the way they phrase it.
Yeah.
It's a Bora grading system, right?
Let's work on this and bring it back to you then on how we can.
Yeah, I'd love to hear ideas for any improvements.
And I don't disagree with it at all. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work from an administrative side in here.
And I
All
do
the
like
different agencies we're dealing with.
adding a section that specifically says level of service adequacy required. I think that's helpful to have in the code so that when applications come in, they know that that's one of the standards the city's going to use when reviewing an application. I mean, we still do it, and it's still kind of philosophically part of the Local Land Use Planning Act and other things. But I think adding that in there as we get this figured out makes a lot of sense so that it's just very clear, transparent to everybody that you're going to be held to this. You have to meet this in order for us to give you an approval.
Well, let me ask my mind is spinning with this right now. When does ACHD give us a level of service on things that don't have traffic studies with them? Do they do it just based on the number of units? So we can get that anytime. We don't have to worry about the 100 threshold or anything like that to have a traffic study done, right? Okay, all right. So it apply for everything. Yeah.
So and I would just ask as you guys go back and think about this, like reading through the code is required, I think. I wouldn't want anybody to vote to adopt this without having read through that code because I have tried to anticipate, Trevor, things like what you just talked about, that I don't want to create any sort of situation that gets us in trouble now or that makes things difficult for us. And the way I've written this is really intentional to give us options and possibilities, but not to create or establish anything up front that causes a challenge.
AI.
Well, no, unless you think AI stands for actual intelligence.
I love you, man. I'm kidding.
You'll notice that there's a consistency to the format, and I used AI to help me with that. But these are written by me for many years.
Is this your fifth time?
First time with this one.
Okay, all right. Let me put number one. Okay. All right.
And Sean, you're going to have to help me. Where am I at? What's the next
So
one?
go down to,
So the next one, we're going to do residential rental registration and single family.
you want to go to your summary? It's,
Am I going up or down? Right here?
yep, there's your summary right there. Yep.
All right. So this one creates a pretty big program to regulate long-term residential rental dwellings. We've called them horizontal apartments in the past. And this is something that we've attempted a couple of times to bring code forward and try to adopt something. I feel like in times past, we've come up against some challenges that I think would have got us in trouble with the U.S. Code for Fair Housing. And so what I've attempted here is to adopt a solution that would not get us in trouble with the U.S. Fair Housing Act. And anyway, rental registration is part of the program. I don't want to necessarily focus a whole lot on that because I think that's an administrative construct that helps us get to where this is trying to go. Really down here, the large single-family rental operator license is where I'm going. And let's see if we get some more specific things down here. So, it seeks to limit single-family rental communities to a specific residential and mixed-use zones, subject to conditional use and development standards, particularly for those zones. Some standard open space and internal connectivity, local management presence, things like that. Common ownership limits. It applies to new plots, and this is a little bit incorrect because it goes through R5 zones. Caps common ownership of rental homes at 25% of lots, and limits contiguous rentals on a block face unless it's approved as a single-family rental community. So you can imagine that this idea of a single-family rental community, somebody might come to us and say, we want to build one of these things like American Star Homes. This would prevent them from having more than 25% of those homes. Actually, I think it's 50% as that in a single-family rental community. But so no more than 50% could actually be rentals. The rest of them would have to be normal single-family homes available for sale. The idea that, and we saw American Star do this, they went and bought another neighborhood and started then making those homes available. This code in that case, if they go and buy another neighborhood, only 25% of the homes in that neighborhood would be allowed to be under common ownership by that particular company or their associated companies like parents, subsidiaries, things like that. So, and then let's say that somebody wanted to come in, a corporation, and this is really popular across the country. I see, at the national level, there's actions being taken around this, but companies coming in to buy up single family homes that come up for sale, and they just start accumulating homes in an area. And I feel the need to protect our community from just becoming a corporate rental city. And so in those cases, I believe the code limits that to like 10 homes is what I'm proposing here. So
is that the large single-family rental operator license required for any owner controlling 10 or more single-family rental units?
right.
So when we say, okay, so this is two pieces then, right? One for that and one for them to bring in a community. Regardless of the size of the community, only 25% of them can be rentals.
So in that community coming in under a conditional use in a special zone. So this ordinance creates a special zone for that. It applies multifamily and mixed use type attributes to it. So it's not just your regular single family subdivision. And it puts a lot more restrictions on it. So in that case, I believe that what I've written in there is 50%. And look, we can adjust these percentages. I've just, put numbers in there.
How do you apply it to an existing that's already been approved?
So it's treated as a legal non-conforming use, but it may not expand.
Explain that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've added a definition as a legal non-conforming use. So American Star would not be conforming with this ordinance. So because they're already existing, they qualify as a legal non-conforming use. And as such, they're not going to be penalized or held in violation, but they won't be able to expand that operation, right?
So again, they go in and they go in, American Star, American Homes for Rent goes in and they buy.
Well, right now they're not built out in that one over on.
They go and buy it because what they did is they went and they bought River Creek, which was already approved and
right.
entitled and everything like that. How do we prevent that from happening after the fact?
Well, I think that's what he's saying is that if they go buy that only 25% of the homes that they buy are allowed to be rentals in there.
Right.
The rest of them would have to be for sale.
Right.
But I think part of
something we'll need to have something in the development agreement that says that if this happens, then they have to do.
it needs to come back as a CUP, in my opinion, so you can add additional restrictions to it or requirements. Because we talked about that.
Well,
Right.
I tried to do that before.
Right.
So then we put it in all new subdivisions, that requirement or that
Yeah.
stipulation, right?
Yep.
You could even add a requirement that existing ones have to notify the city if it goes up for sale.
You'd have to do it moving forward. We don't have any of that in it.
No, well, right, but so like, if somebody new is going to come in and buy American Star's project and they want to be the new management company, then if I understand this right, they would be restricted to only owning 25% of the homes. The other 75% would go up for sale as single family housing, or American Star could hold on to them.
One fell
Well,
swoop.
or American Star could hold on to them, or whatever. And, that's something maybe to think about. But if we required the existing owner, American Star Homes, they have to provide notice to the city at the time they put it up for sale, then we would be able to be there, and not that we're intervening in the sale, but we're there and we can say, okay, this is how it works. And you've got to, or the new buyer is, these are the code provisions you've got to meet, and those sort of things. So there's at least a notice requirement. So we're brought in. So there's not.
How will we know that that's happening? We didn't know until after it was already.
So that gets back to the rental registration program. So the ordinance requires the establishment of rental registration. And I've contemplated different ways to do that. I've tried to put language in there to the effect that we don't want this to be a burden to the city staff or to, there's going to be a little bit of a burden, right? But I looked at the city of Pocatello has some code that, sorry?
I'm saying city clerk.
Oh, yeah.
Burden.
So we did, it was Rexburg. Sorry, it was Rexburg, Idaho. Rip off and duplicate of some of their code theirs was pretty intense. I stripped out some of the intensity and just really coalesced into the essence of the intent, which is let's create a lightweight registration program so we know what's out there, and so there's compliance. I think it should be web-based. I think it should be owners should be able to go in and take care of it without any intervention by city staff. And basically we're just kind of monitoring and reporting. So, we can't do something like this without some sort of a registration.
So, and I have a question. If company B goes in and buys Ameristar or whatever, and we require them to only be able to have 25% of the homes, and they're going to sell 75% of them, is there a legal mechanism to make them take a year or two to let those out back into the market so they don't flood the market? Is that a thing? If you let them have them 20% at a time could go on the market, or whatever.
I know you're looking there. I did not contemplate that. Like, I didn't want to get into managing markets or anything like that, but it's a good question for you.
And we
talked
talked about a
about
while
that.
back because you'd want to, because that's something like that would impact everybody trying to sell a home in the city, right? If you've got, you say it's just 100 home subdivision, you've got 75 homes, all of a sudden, boom, go for sale. We'd have to think through it. I'm not, there's general prohibitions, that don't allow cities to interfere with people's ability to contract. And so we just have to think through how that would work. I agree. We don't want to create a problem for everybody in town. That would be, front page news.
And I'm not even sure that this proposed ordinance would require the sale. I mean, based on, as you
I
bring
don't think
that
it's
up,
required sales. Just if somebody came in and said, "Hey, we like this model. There's a project already sitting here that's a for rent project," and like you say, it's happening nationally. You've got, there's conversation right now about prohibiting Wall Street from buying single family residences because of this kind of stuff, because that's what corporations are doing, and so it may just be something or the code's not necessarily require American Star to sell, but somebody might come in and try to buy it, I think is what we're talking about. And if the limit is, if you come in and buy it, you can only buy 25%, then does that then create the other 75 hitting the market at the same time? Yeah, and I think that's something we just need to think through how that trigger might work and whether there's a way to protect that. Because yeah, that we wouldn't want that like unintended consequence where all of a sudden we flood the star housing market with a bunch of houses and then everybody's home values they're trying to sell kind of get depressed. And it's different products, so maybe it's not as big an impact, but it would be for
And we might
certainly for
get some
some.
advice on what it would mean to flood a market, because I mean, we approve a new 900 home subdivision. We're going to put 75 homes on the market in 3 months,
True.
right? So
Fair enough.
So the impact of that, I think is, I mean, we've got nearly 600 homes available in Star today. So I'm not sure that we're not creating that sort of market impact already just through new construction. And so I think I'd like to get some advice as to whether that's a real concern or not.
Yeah. Oh, fair.
How do you want to move forward on this? I personally like the idea. I just try to wrap my head around how you, all the.
I think
ins and outs.
figure out some way to get in there. So if they buy
That's the thing. If they buy an existing, how do you?
back for the CUP,
Yeah.
we're gonna add some conditions on that, like we did with American Star, about common maintenance and all that kind of stuff. Because I think that's.
If you do it as part of a registration, you're not going to until after the fact, until after people start renting it, and you're too late.
Yeah, there's kind of two different.
But how do you know that?
There's two different stages we're talking about. One is you have an approved plat that was approved for a single family development. And then somebody like American Star comes in and says, we're going to buy the plat and then develop what we want as a rental development. So that's one issue where initially there's not going to be any registration because it's not a rental project. And so when they come in, unless they voluntarily do it, like you say, who would know until they start building houses and renting them?
That's what I was saying 3 years ago. I put it in the development agreement that if they do convert, then we have guidelines and standards, but we never got there.
Yeah, but
I think that's what you're trying to.
I think the reality is whether it's in a development agreement or in the city code, you have the same problem.
Yeah.
Because if you still, because even if they put in the development agreement, we're not going to know until something happens because.
At least it's a contract between.
Agreed.
We could have gone back and gone after.
Yeah.
Campbell, if it was a case in the contract, it wasn't, and.
Yeah, but even if it was a city code, it would have been the same thing. If he'd violated city code and was selling it, just or you get the buyer either way. But yeah, there's got to be some way we can document it, track it, no matter how it's working. And so that may be just one of these questions we need to figure out. But I do think that some of these things, I wish we could do more of this, frankly, with some of the short-term rentals, which we may lose total control over if the legislature has their way. But because I think some of that stuff is there's public safety issues and other things for a bunch of those, but I think there's a real value in kind of trying to. I think a lot of the stuff was a public safety question that's certainly within the purview of the city to monitor and regulate.
Set it aside and not think about it again for 2 years.
Turn your mic on.
I hit the wrong, sorry, Miss Dana. I think Kevin provided us with some language and stuff that I think we just need to massage and we get it adopted. And if we have to go adjust it, we go and adjust it based on what we find. It's not going to be perfect to start out. There's no way.
There's no way. And I think you guys have asked some good questions. And again, I would encourage you to take those questions and then just dive into the text. I mean, it's like 8, maybe 12 pages long. Double space. Yeah, I know it's long, but go in there and see if you can find out if those questions are answered and or what it would take to answer them to your satisfaction. Because making those changes up front, I think, would be important. And but yeah, otherwise I've provided language that is, for all intents and purposes ready to adopt.
15,700 words if you're paying attention.
So
From
just real
AI.
quick, I wanted to, so in support of this idea as well, I had a meeting this morning with our problem-oriented policing team. This topic actually came up. They brought it up. and said they wish that there was a way to limit the number of rentals in subdivisions. That we could limit the short-term rentals, and I mean, they talked about the problems that the all rental subdivision has versus a subdivision that doesn't. And so, I mean, it was something that they brought up, and it's funny, they said 25% too. That's what their cap was. So
You must have talked to them.
I mean, it's just
Channeling.
but it's just so from a policing standpoint, and I'm sure Steve or others could add to that, but they see the need for something like this as well. They brought it up out of the blue. We were talking about security camera locations, and this topic came up.
Yeah.
So
I have to get some data and stuff, but I want to ask you, just from when we're talking about the tracking and monitoring this, does our system that you guys use for the building department have the ability to add modules, to add some of this kind of registration to it?
it has lots of modules. We'd have to check with iWorks and see if they have something that we could utilize like this, or we'd have to see if something, and I think Kevin left, but Victor uses iWorks too. We might be able to see what's out there.
We're
If I
already
were-
using it for licensing. We're using it for dog licensing,
Oh, so we may be
alcohol
able to.
licensing.
Easier.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's no different than it's a license, which we're using.
That's true. We wouldn't need a separate module. Yeah, you're
Oh.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
that would make it easy because I was going to say that if we had to develop some sort of capability or website, then along with this, we would need to do a budget item, right?
But, well, we'll have to budget. Well, we might not have to budget. He just have to
Yeah.
look at it. But the nice thing is we're already using the technology to make it happen. So it doesn't go too far. We just got to figure out the dynamics of
Yep.
that. Were you going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, Mayor Chadwick. So it's a lot to wrap your head around, and I did go through it in depth, and I know I had a number of notes, and then it's been a while since I looked at it, so I'm trying to remember all of my thoughts about it. But one thing, so the overall purpose of this, we reference American Star the most, right, for the rental community, and so the problem. Can you help me just clearly understand what the problem is that we're trying to fix? So I hear safety. So being able for the police to do their job in the neighborhood?
There is a correlation to rentals versus homeowner occupied stuff and crime.
Okay. So then therefore, their call for service in that area would
It's
be
higher.
a little bit higher. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What other
I think one of
problems?
the pieces to this is even just requiring the local management companies and some of that, and it gives the city somebody here, however we define local.
That's where I
But
was
there's actually a
going.
contact, because this isn't necessarily an American Star problem. So we probably unfair to keep throwing their names.
Right.
they're the
Yeah.
ones here.
This is the
Right.
one
They're
that
the
we know.
example.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
more me because I've been using their name probably more than anybody. But we do get these, whether it's corporations that come in and buy a bunch of homes, or even it's individual investors that buy up a bunch of homes, and trying to get, whether it's code enforcement or whether it's law enforcement or whatever it is, a lot of times we don't even know who to contact. And so part of this ordinance is to help support the city so that when there are things that go on, whether it's, again, code violations like nuisances and that kind of stuff, or whether it is law enforcement, that we know what we're getting into, we know who we're talking to, and some of those things. So that's part of this. It's not, the whole thing isn't just targeted to, we don't like rental houses. It's,
Specifically not targeting rental houses.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why we're trying, and in my opinion, I shouldn't be speaking for you, Kevin, because you're the one who put this together, but
You're doing great.
but there's a lot that happens on these that really do affect the city. And so there's an effort here to try to just not prohibit, but just kind of regulate a little bit, so that we can do a better job as we try to protect all the residents in the city of Star. Because there's just this kind of, and it's unfortunate. This is my words. Opinions can differ. We have a legislature that doesn't like the city doing anything. Right. And so even like the single family rentals, or not single family, short-term rentals, it's like you have to treat it as a single family residence. I mean, they're basically little hotels that people rent out of their house, especially the VRBOs. The Airbnb sometimes is just a room, but whatever. But it's like, In my old neighborhood, I had a lady that both sides of her house were short-term rentals, both neighbors. She had a teenage daughter, never knew who her neighbor was every weekend. Never knew. New people coming in. Sometimes 3 families would roll in. The parents would take the 3 bedrooms. The kids would be all on the floor. They'd go use the community pool. And there's no ability to regulate. And she felt unsafe for her daughter because she never knew who her neighbors were, because it's every weekend there was somebody new in both houses next to her. And those are real concerns. And so the effort, that's short term. This is, long term stuff, but it's just trying to figure out how we can best protect Star residents. That's why I look at this, and trying to just manage it. So whether it's, the sales, whether it's home values, whether it's safety and security, all those things, to me, I think are all wrapped together in this. And we're just trying to get a handle on it.
So it seems like we for sure need that registration system, like yesterday. Would that be, I mean,
Yeah,
we probably need both.
It's
We may
impossible.
need both, but we definitely need a way to get a hold in touch with these whoever the renters are. So
So the statement I have up on the screen right now really summarizes it. Establishes a rental registration and large single-family renter operator license program. It defines and regulates single-family rental communities. It establishes residential uses and subdivision standards for those communities, provides for a web-based registration system, definitions, applicability, fees, enforcement, transition provisions, all the use regulations, development standards, common ownership limits. This is really attempted to be comprehensive, and it's really complex.
And so when you're applying it to a new subdivision in this new district that we're defining, so you're saying that only 25% could be rental homes in that subdivision? Did I understand that correctly?
So there's a
Or
difference
50?
between a large single-family rental operator license,
Okay.
which would be an entity that owns 10 or more residences. You need a license for that anywhere in town. And then there's the single-family rental community, which would be a new type of development that I've attempted to kind of mix multifamily, single-family, and mixed-use type codes to come up with that. And so in the rental community, I think the number I have in there right now is 50%. But that's just a number I put in, right? We can make that whatever number we want. But again, that's a community that's designed to be that. It's known to be that. We've had a CUP and we've had other, codes that apply that help us to make it, an appropriate development. Because I think banning that outright puts us up against, other laws, legal challenges. And so we have to have a provision by which we would entertain it and, make that possible. So there's really those two things. The rental registration enables the monitoring and code enforcement and, some of those things as well. So.
And it's not that the entire neighborhood would be rentals. It's just a percentage.
The intent is to limit it to a
Yep,
percentage.
yep, okay. All right.
It's really probably, I guess I have to go back and look at the ordinance again. Could you have 4 people that each own 25%? So it's still 100% rentals, but.
That would be 4 different. Well, so.
Right. So I don't know that it necessarily limits all the houses, only
But-
25% could be rentals, because somebody could own a house and still choose to rent it, and it's their only property.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have that in a single family rental community because you have one
Right.
applicant.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the only way they could do that is if 4 people then went out and bought a whole neighborhood, split it 25%, but then you've got 4 different entities and that meets the statute. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be gamesmanship no matter what you do here. But I think this protects us in a lot of ways.
Can I ask a question on this? Is that all right?
Yeah.
In your this last piece may have answered it. So are you saying that one person is limited to the 25%? My question is more specifically for individual people who might want to rent their homes out. If I've lived in my home for 20 years and I've decided I want to move to another home but rent mine out, but there's already 25% of the homes in my neighborhood that are rentals, is that restricting me and
That does not
disallowing?
restrict you at all.
Okay.
No, the 25% is if you have an entity that comes in and buys a whole bunch of homes and suddenly meets the definition of a what I put in there, a large single family rental operator. That entity is limited to 25%.
There's the next level down is 10 homes or less.
Well, so then the next level down, the 10 homes is 10 homes or more requires you to have an operator license.
So what's up to 10?
Nothing.
Nothing.
That would be what she just.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So the subdivision and then rent it out.
Under
That's fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Okay.
be subject to a 25% cap.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
would still be required to register your rental. And
You have to register.
I envision that like being free or like less than $5. I mean, yeah, less than a dog license, hopefully. Like I don't want there to be an impediment. I want people to, opt in and participate.
Well, we'll figure out the fee.
Yeah, we'd have to figure
The
that.
fee has to be based on actual.
And then we can use this registration thing for the building department when they want to know who the owner is that comes in and gets building permits.
Yeah, once they
Look,
put in their new water.
This is all for Kevin Pitt.
Yeah.
All coming around.
Well, the police won't have, they could come and get the information. It doesn't tie into their system. Because their systems are ran through Ada County. We can't commingle them.
Yeah.
He could go in there and get it, but.
Are we done with this one? Mr. Wheelock's about to sleep.
Yep.
So again, what are we doing with this? Are we going to bring it back
We're going to bring it back.
next month to adopt it?
Yes.
Okay.
We got some language. We'll just have to work through that with Chris, I think, to make sure it's good. And then we're going to have to make adjustments. But we got to get it codified. It's not going to be perfect because this is new. And I promise you this, we do this, it's going to be a media frenzy on this thing when people figure this out.
When was the last time that scared you?
It hasn't scared me at all. So, all right.
Sign ordinance.
Sign ordinance.
All right. So this one it's actually, I haven't worked on this one for years and years, maybe just 2 or 3 years in my head and 2 or 3 weeks in the last, recent ones. But I've got a collection of Redmond Homes signs in my garage that I've pulled off of city property over the last several months. They kind of started it, not just in Star, but all around the Treasure Valley, and other home builders and companies are now following suit because it's a competitive landscape. And these signs are going up everywhere. They're all over private property. I know that these companies don't have permission from the HOAs to put them in their common areas. So frankly, it just makes our town look junky. I drive down Floating Feather, and just today I counted more than 30 signs between Highway 16 and Star Road. So this ordinance really is intended to require that anybody who places a sign is authorized to do so by the property owner where they place it. So in order to do that, I've put on some identification requirements. All signs must include contact information for the person or entity placing the sign and the party who authorized the placement. So if I want to put a sign up in Steve's yard, then I need to get authorization from him. And then I note on the sign, I'm the person who placed it. Steve Day authorized it.
What kind of sign are you referring to?
These are temporary signs. So, sorry?
Permanent signs would need ownership too.
Right, yeah, but
It's just targeted towards the temporary ones, so people just come
all temporary signs. So look on the board here. So mobile signage restrictions, vehicle trailers or equipment used to primarily display advertising. So somebody drives up, parks something just for the purpose of displaying it. Think of the little sign that you stick in the ground to say, hey, call me for sprinkler blowouts, things like that. I address in prohibited placements there. You can see signs may not be placed in public rights of way or on private property without express permission or legal authorization. In the code, legal authorization includes statutory authorization. So instead of including, going and having a conversation with ACHD to put a sign in the right of way, if ACHD has a statute that allows the placement of that particular sign in the right of way, you just note on the sign ACHD statute and number. That's the limit there. So,
Any questions of Kevin?
So I will say I love this. We have some temporary signage stuff in our current code. And as soon as you guys tell me to clean them up, we will clean all of them up. But the direction has always been, let our businesses get their word out. Let the people know that the businesses are here. And so all you guys say the word, we'll clean up the town.
yeah. Well, and I think we still want our businesses to get the word out. And our businesses should respect private property owners enough to get permission to place a sign. So, if they've got signs printed up and they want to put a label on there that shows this is who placed it and this is who authorized it, they're in compliance. I think this is minimal effort to comply. And it gives us, the ability to really go to these companies who aren't native to Star and frankly are just making the place look like heck. So
100%.
We're not wanting to go after Toontown with everyone having their own signs out in front in the right of way. But you're trying to, are you including that or excluding?
well, how do you exclude it? Then you get in trouble if you start excluding it. But look, I'm not going to tell you that you've got to go enforce. I'm not going to dictate to the code enforcement officer who he has to go talk to. So,
I mean, Ryan, to your point, we do have temporary signs that are allowed in city code. That's not what this is going after. This is generally going after the off-premises temporary signs where people are just, it could be any kind of sign. It could be an election sign that someone's just sticking at the front of a homeowners association, or a neighborhood. It could be they're sticking it wherever. There's no permission. It's on, if it's in the right of way, you've got to get permission from ITD or ACHD. If it's on private property, you should have permission from the property owner. And so a lot of this is, and I think you all know, the U.S. Supreme Court does not allow us to regulate signs based on content. So the words on the sign don't have any impact on how we approach this. And so that's, I think, Kevin's point is that, it's hard to have exclusions because, the federal U.S. Supreme Court says hard to do that. And so be temporary is the, category that you can regulate. And so anyway, so we're trying to, I don't think this is targeted to actual permitted signs or signs that meet our ordinance, but like sometimes a temporary sign, I can't remember what our time frame is in the code, but sometimes it's 3 weeks, 3 days. Yeah. And so if it's been up for 2 months, right, we've now got a mechanism to say we're going to get rid of it, which we already have. But if they're putting that temporary sign someplace else and they're just, people are just going downtown, plugging in signs, lawn mowing, whatever it is, aeration services. There's all kinds of them, right? Yep. We just want them to make sure that under this ordinance, then the city would say, you've got to label it. We need to know who you are and have whoever authorized it to be there. If it's not there, then we can clean it up.
I think it's great.
Yeah, but it's not intended, this year I'm wrong, but it's not intended to go after allowed temporary signs that businesses are using to say, hey, we've got a business open house or, whatever.
Right now,
that's not
using our temporary sign properly.
That's correct.
Filling out the application. We're not issuing the permit, throwing up their feather signs or whatever.
Yeah, and it may be worth, just kind of reaching out to the, the business community or whatever and say, hey, we actually do have a sign ordinance. And if we're okay with what they're doing, maybe we need to change our sign ordinance so they're not, in violation because
It's a call.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's two parts to that, right? I mean, if our sign ordinance is too restrictive and it's like, well, we're just going to give people a week anyway, we ought to change our ordinance to match what we're doing.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think we're not intended to, as I read it, this isn't intended to get rid of legal signs. It's just to make sure that
It's all the off-premise stuff.
Yep.
The purpose and intent is exactly what's shown there.
Okay.
And that's great.
Mr. Wheelock has a
Let's
question.
do it.
Billy lost his dog and tacked a thing up on the telephone pole, find my dog. Is that going to get a fine? Is that a
So,
tear
so
it down?
let me scroll up here and identify, if you read through the code, I've identified who's authorized to remove signs. And I've included our code enforcement officer and Ralph Jordan. Because Mr. Jordan does remove those signs. Because it is illegal to put those signs on public utility poles.
Well, they bring in big ladders out, man.
Yeah.
Up there now.
High ones that you can.
got Ralph out there, who's 87.
Well, then, or we get you, you're 6'5", broken, you can get up.
Look, there's no intent to get Jimmy in trouble. And I hope that our code enforcement officers would not just blanket hand out $100 fines, right? The fine is there to discourage malicious behavior.
Fines are discretionary anyway, just like any
Right.
ticket is, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor Chadwick?
Yep.
Before we go on, so with our current code that we have and signage for like the flags, say in front of Toontown, what is the current code for that? So it's placed, on their property. They can have this flag, right? They're
So
all illegal.
yeah, everything in front of Two Town is a non-conforming sign right now.
Right.
So they
right.
need to come apply for a permit. We would issue them we review it, we would issue them a permit that's good for 3 days. So it's really our temporary sign permit is designed for events, grand
Okay.
openings, a weekend
So
sale.
maybe we need to change that temporary or add something to help
Mhm.
those business owners that want, we want to take care of our businesses here too, that, like it's really hard to advertise. And so now you're saying, well, I don't know.
So that person that's telling
The
them,
chamber, like chili.
tell you that person, they keep
Right.
referencing they're told not to, it's me. Because I want my businesses to be successful. I don't want them to be challenged.
But
We
I-
have a hard enough time as it is out here with that. And I have no issue with it. You guys may think it looked like shit, and it's fine.
It does, but
I'm just telling you where I am on this, and I will own up to that right now.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to amend the code so that it matches that, so we don't have this conflict where we've got codes that say one thing.
Very subtle.
Because then the
I mean-
residents can say, hey, that sign shouldn't be there, it's illegal. And we don't want to be in a position where we're saying, well, yeah, it may be, but we're just not going to
So
enforce
if we're
it.
gonna do this.
So we need to fix the code.
So every rental sign comes out, every realtor sign comes out, everything comes out everywhere,
And
everywhere. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it for everybody. It ain't gonna be
Look-
just for the businesses.
This isn't, I don't see what I'm proposing here
You're
to be.
not proposing, I'm
This is-
going back to what they're saying.
this is a separate conversation.
This is a separate conversation from
Well,
your.
let's move
conversation.
on. We're trying to
City
get
Hall.
Wheelock to bed.
Fair. That is a totally fair statement.
I live
One
in-
of us is a
I live in
morning
Eagles, I don't
person.
care what you're seeing.
You get to drive there. No walking.
My code just wants them to have permission to put it.
Right. Okay. Are you good on that now?
That's what it is when I put with the mayor from Boring Weddings.
Last one, Kevin.
Doing it, we made it.
I'll get done maybe in 2 minutes.
Maybe.
Must have a brief city council meeting.
Look, I'm trying to be nice to you guys and be brief. So the purpose of this proposed ordinance really is to lay out, and it doesn't create anything net new in terms of law. The First Amendment, gives us freedom of speech and freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, things like that. And so there's already plenty of law that lets people say what they want to say. What this ordinance attempts to do is to take the guesswork out of say, a constitutional law and how it's being applied in the city of Star, specifically related to us having an opening prayer before our meetings. It establishes a formal process by which we will invite people to say that prayer. It specifically and legally creates a method by which we don't have anybody from outside the city of Star coming in to do that, to advance a political agenda or any sort of agenda, I should say, politics aside. So it requires that, like if we have, it requires an opt-in registration of organizations who want to participate, creates a round robin, and it requires those organizations to have a bona fide presence within the city of Star. So we're keeping it local. It gives the mayor options for if somebody doesn't show up or somebody doesn't sign up, it gives him options for how to address that situation, up to and including just striking it off the agenda. The other thing that it does is it calls out very clearly that there is a separation between civil and religious authority, and specifically that religious authority cannot punish person or property or overstep into any of the areas that civil authority has that domain, and that they are limited to, things like membership or, doctrine and belief and things that churches are, good at doing. So, again, the purpose is to drive clarity and ensure that we've got a good way of administering this program so that the public is aware and they can go through and read the basis by which we're doing it. And also, I will say one other thing that it calls out, that the purpose of our invocation is to honor and recognize our nation's motto, "In God We Trust." Now, I did add something in recently on marriage ceremonies.
It needs to come out.
It can totally come out. I didn't talk with the mayor about it, but my thought was, he doesn't perform ceremonies, and that. Oh, you do?
I do perform ceremonies, but there's state law that I'm already following for that.
Oh, perfect.
But but this does a little bit
So
more
I
restriction to that.
I was attempting to help you out
Oh, yeah,
in
no, I'm
a
good.
way that I wasn't aware of. So yeah, we can pull that out. I don't think that has any bearing on it. So
So Chris,
Yeah, no, I think it's, there's nothing in the ordinance, I mean, other than the marriage piece, just because it was, I read it as restrictive, not permissive.
Oh.
But the mayor is, under Idaho Code 32303, he's one of the listed people, current mayors. It's interesting, current and former governors
former governors. Yeah.
can perform weddings, but only current mayors, not former mayors. But there's a laundry list. Interesting, and only current lieutenant governors, not former lieutenant governors. Anyway, it's kind of weird how they did it. But there's just an automatic allowance that marriages can be solemnized by a list of people, including the mayor. And the other part of it is on the marriage piece was that I think that the way it was worded, it was kind of like maybe other people in the city could do weddings, but in the city of Star, really the only person that can do it is the mayor. There's judges and stuff around that can do it. And we have a former governor. I don't know if he still lives here, but he can.
yeah, so we'll just pull that out.
But yeah, so and the rest of it, I think as Kevin commented, it's not really anything new or groundbreaking. Religious liberty is protected by the U.S. Constitution. In 2014, the U.S. Supreme Court reaffirmed that cities have the right to have prayer to start their meetings. They do not have to be generic, like ecumenical type prayers. If you're a Christian community, you can have Christian prayers. That's fine. You're not really allowed to ban others who are in the community. If somebody else comes that's Jewish and wants to give a prayer, you can't say absolutely not. But you can have, but you can have prayers. That's 100% allowed. You're also not required to go outside the city to bring people in. That's all part of the U.S. Supreme Court cases. And so a lot of this is, as Kevin indicated, it's regulated by court case law. It's regulated by, federal constitution, state constitution. But it does, I think, help provide some transparency to the public on how the city is going to manage things, which if that's, if the city council wants to adopt that kind of an ordinance here, you totally can. And it's, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't have legal concerns with the ordinance as it's written. It may not be totally necessary because because again, it's all kind of there, but it does say this is how you're doing it in STAR, and we officially and affirmatively recognize kind of the separation of church and state, and church has authority and the city has authority and those things. So those are my comments.
So I just have some questions on city administration and scheduling. Oh, you didn't have page numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You said it was in C.
8, I think. Let's see. I think it's right there.
Oh, right there. There you go. Oh, so scroll back up. So what section is this?
So the primary
Ceremony
rotation
implication, okay.
preference, meeting date shall be first offered rotating order amongst religious establishment roster, 1 day per establishment per rotation cycle. What are you considering a rotation cycle in there? So what are we establishing in there?
So I think the cycle, in my mind, the cycle would depend on how many opt-in that we have. Like, so if we had 15 different churches in STAR or organizations that wanted to participate and they all signed up, then you'd have a rotation of 15.
And if they don't accept, like if you give them the offer and they say no,
Or they don't show.
right?
Right.
Yeah. Then is it still like 15 meetings? Or is it, are they just, I guess it doesn't matter. It's something you can figure it out. But I'm just thinking if you get to the third one, you're like, would you like to give the prayer this meeting? And they're like, no, that's okay. Then you move everybody up on the list. Do they go to the bottom of the list, or is it just like you miss this rotation? We'll come around next time. Probably doesn't matter.
What I envisioned is they just miss in the rotation. Like they don't get next time. Right.
So I think we have a pretty good process on what we're using right now.
Yes, and
Let her
and
talk
it
to
kind of
this. So
goes along these lines. So what I do is I put out an open call. I have an indicator email list and I put out, here's the dates I need, and I do it every 4, 5, 6 months in advance. And I'm not having the trouble I was having before in getting people to sign up. So that's really great. I have some who will sign up as soon as I send it out, will sign up. Right now, I've got a situation that's kind of along these lines where Calvary Chapel Star they've gotten a lot of people interested now. So I've got my regulars from other locations, and they had a couple of regulars as well, but I have a lot of people from theirs signed up for probably 5 weeks in a row. So I think what you're saying is if somebody from another religious, someone other than them had asked for a spot, probably because there's 5 of them, give that person preference. But since nobody else had asked for those dates, I've got probably them 5 times in a row.
Right.
And then another religious organization is in there, probably week 6. I've now gotten a couple of people who are affiliated, not as clergy or bishop, in that capacity, but they're attenders of a church. So that's kind of how I'm doing it at this point, trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance if they want it, but everybody does, because I don't have that many people on my list.
I don't see that as different than what I've written here. I mean, the preference is the primary rotation, and then the gap filling would be just as you said.
I worry about this rigid. I think it's rigid, only because you're saying 1 day per establishment per rotation cycle. Well, if that establishment is signing up and nobody else is, why do I limit them? Why not just let them sign up and then others fill in when they can? Because they may not all be able to go.
Well, yeah,
rotation.
That's the gap filling.
No, I know, but you're saying
help me out.
primary rotation preference. I don't think we do a preference that says it's one establishment per rotation cycle because that I think it creates a problem based on what we've been dealing with here.
I was worried about that at first too, but I think what the way it's working is if one person asked for, 5 days in a row, 5 weeks, 5 meetings in a row, and then somebody else, wanted it, I would have them move out of that space. I wouldn't, I would give everyone a chance rather than, I think this is saying you can have one per rotation cycle if you're trying to take them all, which I don't necessarily have that problem happening right now, where 1 or 2 people are trying to take all of them, where I have to bump somebody out.
Yeah, it's not intended to be rigid. It's intended to be fair and something that people can look at and understand and count on.
Mayor, would it be helpful just to remove the clause that says 1 date per establishment per cycle? And then it would read, meeting dates shall first be offered in rotating order among the religious establishment roster. And maybe it's not even in rotating order, but until each volunteering establishment has had an opportunity to participate. So nobody can take more than one until everybody's had a chance to weigh in. And even if this is over a 4-month period or whatever it is. And then, so we're not from the outset saying you only get one per cycle, but we'll reach out to everybody. Maybe it's not really maybe it's a.
Well, I think it's less of a
difference.
Reach out, see if they can help. It's more of assign them a date. If they've opted in, okay, this is a rotation, this is your date. And, let me know who is coming so that we can put that on the agenda. If within, say, 3 days of the agenda being published or whatever, or of the meeting, they haven't got back to you and they say, okay,
But I think
fill the gap.
I think the way that she's doing it, when we just open it up, say, here's our dates, fill them in. I think it works better than saying, here's your date, a singular date. You see what I mean? That's how I read this, is saying that we're telling you this is your date. Or are you trying to say, here's our book of dates, this next 3 months of our meetings, fill them in. Tell us what you want. That you're available to with your.
It's easiest at this point, rather than, otherwise I'd have to have a list and call a person and try to wait for them to call me back. When I send out these days now, when I send out that call, I get quite a few people coming back. Some pick the same date, but then as soon as I tell them somebody's already picked that, they say, oh, fine, I'll just take the next one, or give me 2 meetings out, works for me. So that's working kind of at this point.
I
Really
just want flexibility in that when we're doing it. I
That's
want
possible.
flexibility, and I don't want it to be so. It's to me, it's too structured in a way that it says, what happens if I violate that? What are you gonna do to me? Right? I mean, it's just like a code thing. What am I gonna do? What happens if we violate this? Because we're just trying to fill dates. We're doing the right thing.
Well, I think the way it's written, there isn't really a violation because there's all sorts of options. But okay, like I said at the very beginning, I'm not married to any of this. So if you think there's a better way, again, my intent is not to be rigid. It's the intent is to be fair and equitable.
Sure.
So if you want it written another way that's also fair and equitable, then let's rewrite it.
Or do we
Bump the one date per establishment per rotation and skip from order among religious establishment roster until each volunteering establishment's had the opportunity to participate, which gives everybody equity.
Or do you just take out the administrative and scheduling and allow us to do it as a policy? The rest, I mean, internal policy can handle that.
It already calls it out as preference and then moves on.
No, I understand that, but
If you drop
that
out
really
the 1 per cycle.
does something that's a policy thing in here, does that really need to be codified versus the rest of it talking about, I could see we're putting that in there and then having the administration of this code, just like it is in the state level. You create a code and then you create the administration policies. It's the same thing.
One way to do this is just, instead of having it spelled out specifically, just say the city clerk shall create a policy to ensure that all individuals or all establishments that are on the religious establishment roster have a fair and equitable opportunity to participate during each rotation or each cycle or something like that. And then just let Shelley figured out. But we put all the words in, fair and equitable and all those things, and just give it, so the code gives the direction on how to do it.
And then she creates policy based.
But then the city staff can then figure out what works best, but to make sure that we're not calling the same church every 2 weeks and saying, hey, come in.
She has that.
Yeah.
She creates that. A backup list, but the backup list, for me, if these people don't show up, then either it's gonna be you, one of us, we're gonna do it. That's our backup list, right? I don't need to codify what that list is.
You can put me on the list too if you want.
I can put Chris on the list.
But
Oh, she does. Oh, microphone.
No, it just sounds like there's an abundance of people now that,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, want to do it.
Oh, we don't know whatever the reason.
Well,
We
maybe
know the reason.
you guys probably forgot already, but
Be clear, I have not forgot.
I imagine it will still ebb and flow. I'm sure that, if
I have no
eventually I'll
recollection.
have trouble.
That's awesome. So are you good with that?
I'm totally good with that,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So then we'll work on that to get that in. And the rest of it, Chris, just codifies basically what the
Yeah.
Supreme Court said, right?
Yeah, I think really and again, Kevin, correct me if you've got different thoughts on this, but to me, this is an effort to just be transparent with the residents of the city. We support religious liberty. This is how it kind of works here. This is how we do prayers. And, but we're not plowing new ground. We're not, we're not affecting anybody's rights. We're just trying to help everybody understand. If you look in our code, we
I think
support
it's
all this.
important when we're not here, that someone doesn't go through the same situation that we just went through
Right.
because of what we didn't know.
Well, and you might sense that behind all the words that I put in this particular section, Trevor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that to happen again. So, but I agree with the approach here that, we can really minimize that section, let you operate it as a policy. And I do think that it should be a written policy so the people who want to see it can see it.
It'll be written policy.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I
Anything else?
don't have any surprise ones.
No surprise ones? Dana, you got anything? No? Okay, all right. Well, since we got through that, we'll work on these. You got your instructions. Chris is gonna have to help us on some of this, I think, on getting it all formatted. We gotta look at Jennifer's they'll send that other thing over. So it's 10:17 and we are done. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the Collins for your date night.